Hello and welcome to, what is it, this 36th edition of the Echo Chamberlain livestream? I don't know anymore. Now, of course, the only thing worse than going obscenely late for the Brits is delaying and going even obscenely later for the Brits. So we're sorry for the 3 or 4 of you who are still up. Let's get straight to the guests. Last night at 2:17 a.m., my regular first guest on the Echo Chamberlain livestream woke up, got out of bed, went downstairs, opened the front door, walked into the dark, and didn't come back until now. He is Mr. Greg Owen.
I have returned to you at the turning of the tides. Wait, are we on the same joke, or are you doing a weapons thing?
That was a weapons thing, yeah. I think it's just enough in the zeitgeist. You were doing a Lord of the Rings?
I guess I didn't. When we weren't on the same page, we really got to. It's like when we try to high five and then we miss.
Yeah.
No, see, you didn't do it. You were no. I was going for it. It's just awkward. All right. Well,
no. What we did is we did. I went for a fist bump, and then you grabbed my hand like that. That's what happened.
Good to see you as always, sir.
Yeah, I understand you're sort of overworked, overcaffeinated, and generally tired, which is a departure from never.
Yeah. No, it's been that way for a decade, so I'm just used to it at this point. It's fine.
All right, well, I'm glad you're here as always. Let's move on
good to see you.
To our second guest. My next guest's most recent video about Star Wars performed better than an earlier video of his about Star Wars, proving that it was a success for him. But that's only when looking at the domestic figures for the video and not taking into account comparisons with international market numbers, nor taking into account ad revenue when adjusted for inflation or the marketing budget for the video and other hidden costs they don't tell you about, and also not factoring in the percentage share of distribution media. And if you did a proper cross-checked cost analysis and look at the real numbers, I don't know anymore how it all works. Here's Desperate Adventure.
Yeah, well, actually, Echo, you forgot to mention merchandising and, of course, long-term streaming revenue. And, you might call it a flop, but it's actually not a flop. It's actually pretty successful when you take into account all the numbers. So, yeah, you can hate all you want, hater. But actually, I'm just laughing all the way to the bank. So,
well, yeah, so when are we going to see some Despot merch? I want a shirt with like a black and red American flag with like a fist.
I'm absolutely serious. If there's anybody listening to this right now and you think you can do my merch, like design my fucking t-shirt or something, just contact me and tell me how much, state a price for how much you want to design the t-shirt. I've contacted 3 fucking people. I got one of them to agree to do the merch and he just didn't do it. Look, I'm not surprised. I've been in business, in the private sector since I was 22. I know how it is. I know how unreliable people are. But Jesus Christ, man, if there's anyone who thinks they can actually design merch, contact me, because there's a lot of merch I would like to design. I know there's a bunch of people who would like a Mr. Reflection t-shirt, non-playable shape. Just if you think you can design my merch, seriously, get in touch with me or leave a comment or something.
Imagine the solidarity, like the sparking of a match. If you're walking down the street and you see someone else with a Karen iPhone shirt, it's just like, yeah, come on. I know. That would be so awesome.
Be fantastic.
Right. Well, today's featured guest is a mainstay of EFAP, a streaming show where the denizens have a different media consumption metabolism so that they are able to digest content over an 8-hour stream in what would be the equivalent of only 10 minutes for the rest of us. Like Tolkien elves to us mere men, they experience time differently, living in ages and epochs rather than years, so that by the end of this live stream, he will be left wondering why we had only just got started. Here's Rags. Hello, sir.
Oh, hey there. Apologies for not being here earlier. I was banned from Twitter for 7 years, and I just recently got my account back, kind of essentially randomly. So I forget to check it for messages and things. It's like it's a new world for me. I have to adjust my brain to do that. So apologies. I'm really sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right. We're used to all sorts of people got complicated lives, online and offline, and streaming. It's a whole thing. But it's fine. You're definitely very welcome. And it's great to see you, and it's great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and sorry again, but here we are.
That's perfectly fine. So I wanted to start off with, it's a message on X of all things that you responded to, talking about how you know, it was basically about gaming, and it's one of those moments where I have a kind of enlightened, almost giggly clarity because I don't understand anything about the message. Like I have nothing to grab onto. So, Greg, I'm going to rely on you to see if you can decipher this
Gotcha.
for me.
Ready.
Okay, here it comes. This is the thing that Rags responded to. You guys ever think maybe the Battlefield community has good reason to hate the average Call of Duty creator? Gatekeeping is cringe, but let's break it down for a second. The majority of Call of Duty videos that go viral are creators focusing on the most shareable, relatable, and lowest hanging fruit there is. Meta loadout videos. Loadouts are the lifeblood of Warzone Call of Duty content, and there isn't anything inherently wrong when done right. The problem is that for the last 4 or 5 years, so many viral creators just fucking straight up lie in those videos. I can't believe this gun is a 2-shot. It's not. This gun is the absolute meta. Watch me get 8 kills with it easily. The clip is them literally farming the worst players imaginable because they 3-box into handicap lobbies. Now, Greg, you're a man where if I ask you to put your hand on your heart with all the integrity you have, you can explain to me the nature of 3-box into handicap lobbies.
That's where you're wrong. I think I thought I was with it until the whole 3. That's indie lingo. But from what I know about Battlefield and Call of Duty, this reminds me very much of well, you talked about this recently in one of your Substack things, but this reminds me of male prawn enthusiasts and lady smut literature enjoyers accusing each other of who's the dumbest and worst and most degenerate, when really it's both of you. That's how I've always gotten the Battlefield Call of Duty thing. But no, I think this is just them saying that they're bad on purpose to get into, because the game will match you up with people with similar skill level, and then they make a video where they look awesome. I think that's what's going on here. Rags, back me up on that. Did I get it?
What is this? Yeah, what is this 3 lobby hand, and what is that?
I don't know. I'm just assuming you guys knew.
I have no idea. I don't know what that is. There's been a lot of Battlefield 6. I'm a big Battlefield player. I've put, with the exception of Hardline in 2042, I've put at least 1,000 hours into every Battlefield since Bad Company 2. I've really liked the series. It's one of my go-to shooters if I'm looking for that kind of thing. So it's been interesting to see a lot of people's commentary on the Battlefield 6 beta, considering it's gotten insanely popular. It got up to like 515,000 players on Steam. And of course, there's going to be way more than that on consoles and stuff. But it's been interesting to see people talk about changes and what isn't there and what is there and how it feels and things of that nature. Though I'm finding that, unfortunately, I seem to have a hot take, which is that Battlefield 5 is way better than Battlefield 6, and it's not even close. But a lot of people aren't ready for that conversation because they are either not familiar with the current state of Battlefield 5, or they have shiny new toy syndrome with the Battlefield 6 beta, and they are just enamored by this new thing that came out, when in virtually every respect, it's a downgrade from stuff that we've seen before. It's kind of wild being so familiar with Battlefield 5 in particular, hopping into the new Battlefield game and notice how much isn't in there, how many mechanics and aspects just are not present. But that'll be my hot take. But unless the Battlefield 6, the main game comes out and they address a lot of stuff and change a bunch of stuff, that'll be my opinion. And I guess bring in the slings and the arrows. I'm ready.
No, I don't even think that's that hot. Like I know that I know Echo, Despot, you guys don't play a lot of games, but there's a big issue with video games where everything is sort of pay as you go. There's like a model, it's called live service, where the game either doesn't cost much or it's free or whatever, and then they say they're going to fix it as they go. And that's a real common. I don't play a lot of online games because there's not a lot of time for it, but there's a popular series called Diablo. It had the exact same issue where the new game came out and people said, hey, this is missing stuff that's been in all the other games. And they're like, well, it's cool, we're going to put it in later. And then when they did, they announced it with fanfare like they were look at this new stuff that we're putting in. And people were like, well, yeah, that was there 10 years ago. That's not new. It's just new to the broken product that you put out. So I don't really understand what's going on there. The games industry is real weird with that stuff. Like if they started making movies that didn't have an ending and they were like, if we get enough ticket sales, we'll film the end of the movie. That is literally what happens in a lot, like no joke. That is 100% what happens in a lot of games where they don't finish it. And like, well, it's cool. We'll finish it after we sell enough. And then they don't. And then they don't finish it. It's crazy.
I'm so disconnected that I don't think I could even get to the beginning of a game now. Like I would know you download the thing and then you got to get a key, which is online, which then you have to do with the thing with the patchworks and the updates and the plugins. And then
it's getting really bad. Like I don't do modern gaming. I'm mostly a retro gamer. There was a moment I was playing a game called Dying Light 2, which is a zombie shooter. It's really fun. It's actually a pretty good game. But I'd played it for a few hours and I was looking at the skill tree. And the skill tree is all the different moves that you can learn. And you get one move at a time once you have enough experience points. And it was like 50 or 60 fucking moves. And I was just like, this is not for me anymore, man. I don't have time to to just fucking wipe out a billion zombies so I can move through the skill tree and then have to remember them all. I just gave up. I just can't anymore. And then fucking Nintendo and the Switch 2, what they're doing, I don't know what other companies are doing this. I know Nintendo were doing it. They will sell you the physical game, but it's not even a game cartridge. It's just a fucking number inside a box that you can enter to download the game onto your device. And you still have to host the game on your device, taking up space. And they will sell you that and claim that it's a piece of physical fucking media and it's not even a cartridge. It's gotten so disgusting. It's gotten too much of a grind and expensive. I'm just happy to retro game now. I don't have much time for it anyway. I mean, last night I was playing Rogue Squadron 2, which is almost 25 years old, and I had a great fucking time with it. I don't plan to go back to modern games anytime soon. I'm just done with them right now.
Yeah, you're not missing out on a whole lot.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of great games that are coming out. Obviously play what you enjoy, but you really are missing out on a lot of good games. You're missing out on a lot of terrible ones, but I'm missing out on a lot of good games.
I just thought I just don't have the time for new games anymore. I'd rather just go back and play older, simpler games where there's not 50 moves to remember, and I don't have to grind my way for 100 hours to get to some Excalibur weapon at the end of it.
Yeah, fair. There's definitely games of mine that I can go back to over and over that are older that I just enjoy, that I know they're reliable. I know I could open them up and play them and it'll let the time pass by. I'll enjoy it and I already have experience in it, so I've already kind of gotten over that hurdle of learning everything. So I get it 100%.
All right. So this is the big film of the moment, and it's doing fantastically at the box office. And Rags, you saw this, I understand?
I did.
Yeah, what are your thoughts? It's what I call a red and black. So Megan excluded. It's where the poster has red and black coloring, and it's a horror film essentially, but it also has kind of elements of drollery and humor to it, and thriller elements as a kind of hybrid horror, I think. And I'm still trying to get used to this idea of a kind of hip zeitgeist horror with humor and those kind of droll humor elements to it as something that I can integrate together and enjoy. What were your thoughts when you watched it?
Whether or not the sort of the combination of tones works for you is going to be a super subjective thing, because it's not like there's we haven't quite figured out the science of combining different tones and having it work. There's excellent examples to this. Typically, I'd point to Jojo Rabbit as a really good example of how to blend like drama and comedy, essentially two completely different tones in the same movie, and still have them sort of work. And I think Weapons does it really well. If it doesn't work for you, then I don't think you can sort of convince somebody that it does work. I think it's just too subjective, but I think it's well crafted enough in the sense that the moments of humor in the movie, at least as they're contrasted with the more spooky elements of it, they seem very very real and believable. The you know, at the end in particular, one of the reasons that that's so amusing is because it is a culmination of the audience's desire to, you know, see things play out. How spoilery are we getting, out of curiosity?
Well, let's leave the ending alone, I suppose. I'll set up the premise for
Sure.
those who haven't watched it. You have a bunch of children who at 2:17 in the morning, all unaccountably at the same moment, rise from their beds and then leave their houses and drift down the street, running in the kind of spread-armed way that you see there on the screen. And then they all come from one classroom where all the children have disappeared except for one boy who remains. And then, you know, the community is, of course, distraught, and they have community meetings, and the teacher of that class comes under heavy scrutiny. And then that's the essential premise. And then it's very weird, isn't it, Rags? Because after about a third of the film, the initial premise almost kind of recedes quite a lot, and you go into these Rashomon-styled stories of telling it from different perspectives. And
Kind of. At the beginning, the narrator even says that the story really begins after the disappearance of the kids. Obviously, it's a good premise, and visually, it makes for a really great trailer. Which is probably partially to should be owed some of the success of this movie. It has an excellent trailer with a neat premise. Because with horror movies, maybe more than a lot of genres, just a solid premise is enough to get people in the door. But yeah, it's sort of a background element of the film for a big chunk of it, and then it sort of intersects with the main plot line. Yeah, but in a good way.
It's largely almost kind of not resolved, but accounted for sort of late into the second act, and then you're left kind of teetering and wondering, where are we and what's going on and where do we go from here? And then it ramps up again, which I thought was really kind of effective and interesting. The thing for me with films like this is the push and pull of grounded reality. Are we grounded reality or not? Because in a real situation like this, even if it's only a month afterward, the entire community would still be crawling and overwhelmed with media vans and media and absolute national fixation on it, and international media as well. And yet after a month afterwards, things have receded in a way that feels artificial and strange. And so are we in a kind of grounded reality or semi-grounded reality? How are we supposed to balance that kind of stuff?
Well, it seemed grounded to me. You still have the school just opening up. You have the big meetings with all the parents and the teachers. You still have, obviously Josh Brolin's character is still like he thinks about it all the time. He sort of labors, over the computer and trying to figure things out. When he talks to other parents or when other parents get involved, they have a lot of things to say towards, or a quote unquote protagonist teacher. I think that it's decent. It's pretty believable how after a month, maybe it's not in the news cycle anymore, and you wouldn't need to have physical news people present in the town and interviewing people, because by then the interviews have probably already been done. But the town itself is still very much affected by it.
And the remaining boy and his circumstances, they would be FBI, they would be down to the ground hyper forensic analysis of every aspect of his life, and prying into who is this new woman and the alleged stroke and it's, it would be hyper forensic in there. So it's I have to sort of set this stuff aside and just, okay, here is the world of the film that I have to buy into, and I just have to ride that aesthetic.
That's probably I think plot wise, that's the weakest part of the film. The investigation that is done, and how the plan of the events surrounding the disappearance are or are not found by the FBI and investigators. That part's the weakest, which is a shame because there's so much that I think the film does excellently. And I would certainly recommend people to go and see it if you're interested in horror movies. I think it's quite a good movie, though I would say that part is its weakest.
So when you have humor in films like this, I mean, of course, there's obviously a precedent for it. If you go all the way back to something like Nightmare of Elm Street, it's more of a kind of slasher than it is. It's not really a horror that much because you've got comedic elements in there as well. So there's a long storied tradition of that. And I guess this is just refining it into something really kind of sophisticated and droll in the way that it does that and unobtrusively puts it in there. Because you've also got that balanced with really strong character work. The main woman, played by what's her name, Ghana, it's a really good, nuanced, compelling performance. She's a flawed character. All the characters generally are flawed. So you got that really authentic character work going on. And then you just get these little ripples and ructions of, okay, it's not really feeling authentic at the same time. And then you just allow it. You just sort of let it go. It's the Tom Waits thing. Like, his voice sounds really weird and strange, but you let him away with it. And this is the kind of film where you buy into the aesthetic and understanding and let the film away with it. And you just have a fun time. So, I got to the end of it and I thought that was a fun thrill ride. And I'm glad this film exists and it's really cool.
Yeah.
So, Greg and Despot, what do you think? Have I captured, is there an aesthetic here? It's comedy, but it's got kind of droll comedic elements, black humor elements in it too. And you integrate both of those and you allow both to happen. Is there an aesthetic there? The black and reds.
The only movie I've seen out of these 5 is M3gan, which honestly I was so bored of. Checked out like at the halfway point. I thought it was absolute fucking tedium. And the rest of these I haven't seen. I don't watch many horror
I finished
movies.
M3gan. You didn't miss anything by dipping out. It's not good.
So most of these start off, establishing a horror premise, and then they gradually, it's a sanctioned unraveling where you're allowed to sort of giggle a little bit at what's going on, at the overload of it. So Abigail, it's a vampire kind of flick, barbarian, monster in the basement kind of flick. So it's playing with genre, but also relishing in genre. I think this is good. I think it's a generally cool aesthetic. So I don't know, but people in the comments, if you dig this stuff, because it's never A+ great, but it's always a good time. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. But I'm glad that the film's doing really well. Weapons, that is, and I recommend everyone go see it. As with all these horror films, it's got pretty small budget, and it's going to make a whole boatload of cash, which I'm really glad about.
Yeah, horror movies can, infamously, they can have very, very low budgets, and sometimes they get a big hit, and it propels them.
There's actually sorry, go ahead, Rags.
No, it's basically wrapping up. You can make a lot of money potentially by just shotgunning out cheap horror movies, and sometimes they just stick, and then they get a whole bunch of sequels and stuff like that. And hopefully, this is a one and done movie as far as I'm concerned. If they do prequels or sequels or anything to it, I'd be like, just let the movie be what it is.
Yeah. I also had the thought, my thought coming out of it was, Rags, if you were like a 12 or 13-year-old with your mates and you watched this, I think that'd be the perfect time. Like, you're still able to be scared as a kid, but you're also hardening up a little bit and aware of adult satire and stuff like that. And that would be like a real, alchemizing thing that would make you really kind of love this as a kind of touchstone thing that you and your mates would watch and then maybe joke about and reminisce years later. Struck me as that would be perfect.
Maybe. I think that one of the reasons that the juggling of like tones and emotions in this movie works so well is that when the humor happens, it happens for like deliberate reasons. It's for very realistic reactions that a character might have, or a very realistic and grounded comment that a character might make to another, or like the culmination of you wanting to see something happening and it's playing out realistically, and or something it's really terrifying is happening, but it's humorous kind of in the way that it's happening, because you're kind of used to it. What's going to happen next, and it's happening to maybe someone that you want it to happen to, or something along those lines. It never feels out of place, the humor. It never tries to undercut any super serious tone or theme or a serious aspect of the movie with a joke. They seem compartmentalized well, or that's used to sort of let you breathe out after a tense scene.
Yeah, there's also, it does really well the idea of if you're in a super conventional situation, like if you're at a gas station filling up your car, and there's a guy ravenously rampaging towards you with bulging eyes, who's like essentially zombified, the incongruity of it in such a conventional, bland environment for that to be happening, I thought is really funny, the way that they do that.
They say, people don't say this. It's not a thing that you'll see people say, but it has been said that one of the things that makes some types of horror work more than others is that a scary monster in a dark castle on the other side of the planet is like that's spooky, sure, but that's where the monster belongs. but having a monster that's in your backyard or in your living room is extra terrifying because it's so out of place and it sort of invaded a place that you call your own. So when we have these very mundane scenarios, filling up gas at a gas station or buying something at a liquor store, there's places we've all been, and then something really out of the ordinary or scary happens, there is almost like a moment of, oh, this is such a mundane and normal place. What does this do? What is this thing doing outside of where it belongs in a horror movie? It's invading my privacy. It's invading my life in the normal world, which I think gives it a bit of its own sting.
Yeah, and it breaks down the idea of here's the typical environments where horror is going to happen. Here's typical environments where you'd have respite and kind of half consciously relax. So if you have that little invasion into those other spaces, I think that's quite cool.
Yeah, filling up your car in the middle of the day in a decently crowded gas station isn't the place where most directors or story writers choose to have their spooky monster attack, because it's just it's just not a scary place at all.
Yeah, that's great. So a grab bag of tons of brilliant ideas. The whole film is just like teeming with energy to it. Does everything cohere as a whole, would be my last question.
I would say yes. Nothing stood out to me. A lot of the times you watch a movie and you get to the part of the movie where you feel like it was injected from another movie, or it should have been cut, or it doesn't fit in terms of what the characters are doing and where they are, or some plot line just feels like it's stitched. Okay, have you seen you've seen Squid Game? Any of the seasons? If you have, the entire detective plot line with Detective Huang on the boat and him, like that whole thing feels stitched on. It feels like it's not really a part of the proper Squid Game story. Weapons doesn't have any of that. I think that everything is there for a reason, and the structure of the film is such that you kind of follow each character's story and get their POV on things individually, and how they sort of coalesce and meet or bump up against each other is one of the ways that sort of keep the different perspectives coherent and on the same track.
Yeah. Greg, have you ever seen a film where it breaks up and it explores something from all different characters' perspectives? And then it's like it goes to one character and you think, not really into that character so much. I don't want to spend another 20 minutes from this guy's perspective. It'd be kind of boring. Although that happened maybe once or twice in this film. Like I didn't really care about Aaron Reich, whatever his name is. I didn't want to go through that, but it all worked out in the end.
I was happy to see him in a proper film, because the last time I saw him was in Ironheart.
Fucking
and so I was like, man, I'm glad that you're still out there acting. You're in actual films made by real creative people. You're not just getting put in through sludge and stuff. So it was good to see him in this.
Well, Rag, so a couple of weeks ago, Greg went on an extended missive or discussion about how he doesn't like to see adult entertainment intimacy on the screen during he feels that it's redundant and unnecessary.
That's right.
Sex scenes, in film. So it was incumbent upon me to go look for some examples and try and convince Greg that these
do your
are
research.
necessary.
Okay, yeah,
exactly.
You did your research on the internet.
Comprehensive.
I gotcha. Yeah,
encyclopedic.
Lots of research. Those are just spooky ghosts. This is ectoplasm. It's fine.
So the Terminator, Greg, the scene between the lovers in the motel. Surely it's important for the plot. Otherwise, the future doesn't happen. We need to see them getting it on. Otherwise, we don't know.
See, like I know I sound like I'm splitting hairs, but like you can show them in a room and like they're taking their clothes off, and you know what's like we all know what's about to happen, and that achieves the same thing. I usually find that it's a waste of screen time.
Yeah, but we don't know what the girl's tits look like until they show us, Greg.
Come on, Greg. Got to
Greg,
sell this movie.
I have a question for you.
It was a mistake to drink.
Greg, I have a question for you. Right, my question is: when you watch porn, do you imagine that you are the guy in the porn, or that you are an outside observer watching things happen? What's the role of an observer that you take when you watch porn?
I don't know. I haven't watched porn in a long time because I watched way too much of it. So I had to quit. But honestly, I don't even remember.
Yeah, fair enough. If talking about sexuality and its depiction in movies, not talking about the thematic importance of it and the human experience and stuff like that. I don't know. I hate to say that it's just you got to go by vibes. but sometimes you just sort of know that it's gratuitous and pointless and it's wasting time. I think a lot of it comes down to, if you care about the people involved, you want to see them happy, you want to see the culmination of relationships, or you even have like or you know that they're being taken advantage of, or someone is, that sort of thing, and so there's a sort of you're looking at it from a different perspective than they are. I mean, there's certainly a place for it. I wouldn't say to not have them, but I would say have them for a reason. Have there be a purpose for it, or else it just comes across. It's like all those slasher movies. You mentioned Nightmare on Elm Street, but all those slasher movies and cheap B flicks and whatnot. A lot of the times, there's just like, oh, we got boobies, we've got a sex scene, and it's not really important at all to the plot. It means nothing. We have no connection to the characters. It's just wasting time, and it's there for just visceral titillation and nothing else, which I won't always knock, but I mean, we're watching a movie, and maybe it's not. Maybe if there's not a reason for it, don't have it.
But Greg, we need to see the intimacy between these two characters to heighten the stakes, and we also need to see the supple vulnerability of the flesh, which is at stake against the hard-edged metal of the Terminator. There's reasons for that sex scene.
Like I get where you're going. There's two things. One is a lot of this recently comes from that. Like, I want to get into watching movies with my kids. And I think I've said this a couple of times. Like, I really thought Oppenheimer was a great movie. I really thought it was fantastic. And I wanted to sit down with, like, you guys should watch this. It's a really good film. It's 3 hours long, but kids, let's just watch this because this is great. This isn't Coco Melon or fucking guys screaming while Minecraft plays in the background. Like, let's watch a real movie. Let's talk about it, right? But then Florence Pugh's tits are out like multiple times, and for no
extraneous
reason
tits
whatsoever.
Oh no, that's not. I can defend. I will defend that scene. I think
those are extraneous tits.
Total opposite.
I mean, they're nice looking, but it's just like when they're in a hotel, they both could have been in a bathrobe, and you would have known. They just did it. Like, we get it.
No, but that's not what they're trying to communicate. It's the total opposite of gratuitous, because the reason they're naked is because Oppenheimer can be real with that woman, and he can be himself with her, and he can be emotionally vulnerable and open with her in a way that he can't with his wife. That's why they're naked with each other. It's a symbolic nudity. It's not gratuitous.
I mean, I get it. I get what they're trying to go for.
Greg, I need an answer. Terminator, have we convinced you that it's an acceptable sex scene?
Still no, but it's the best example. It's the best example yet, because I get what you're saying with the visual, hard versus soft versus vulnerable, all that kind of stuff. But
exactly.
I'm still going no. And I
will agree with Despot on the Oppenheimer thing. Like, obviously those scenes sort of stand out, but that's because the rest of the film is otherwise mostly relatively clinical and scientific in the way that the plot holds up. But I think it's important for the character, and I think it juxtaposes it to his relationship with different characters, and it shows how important she is to him. I think there is a reason for it, but it obviously stands out for obvious reasons, because breasts.
Well, Monsters Ball, a famous scene in which Halle Berry essentially bears all, and her character is so depleted, so ravaged psychologically, so gone, that it's pithy, it's poignant, it's incredibly powerful, with the famous line, "Make me feel good," out of sheer desperation and need for human contact as a way to dispel the trauma that she's going through, which is an incredibly poignant and powerful theme that could only be truly gotten across for an Oscar-worthy, Oscar-winning performance, by the way, in a scene there. So surely, Greg, that's necessary and intrinsic.
I've only seen a clip of that, so I don't know what the context is. But
well, her life has fallen apart, and everything has been ravaged and destroyed, and so she finds both solace and disappearance as a necessary moment, just as a self-protection, self-preservation thing. So that's where the intimacy is crucial in that scene.
I might be able to be convinced on that one.
Yes,
because of the bleak nature of it. But then, there's also an argument, I think, to be made that entire movie is just bleak despair porn all throughout. But I haven't seen it, so I can't pass full judgment. But you make a very convincing argument for that one.
Greg, what about the scene? What about the scene where the soccer mom gets banged in the adult movie? Hot soccer mom gets banged by a teenage friend's son. What about that scene? Because if you don't have that
that's
scene,
a classic one. That's a
no, but
classic
if you
one.
don't have that scene, like you don't even have the movie doesn't even have a point. You know, there's no reason for it to exist. It's not serving its function. Do you know what I mean? It's a functional scene, is what I'm saying.
It's because it's the only. It's the entire. The movie wouldn't exist without it. I get
It'd be the
Yeah,
biggest
movie's
plot
not fit
hole
for
in
purpose
history.
without it.
Yeah. Okay, let's see what else we can do here. So, Team America World Police. This is an important sex scene because it's
Yes, of course.
it's funny. It shows character connection. It's brilliantly done. It's fantastically
no, no.
lit.
I got a
You
good
know
one.
what? You got me with this one because this one added to the movie. Because it was because it was so over the top and ridiculous, and also followed the great line that I can't sleep with you unless you promise me that you'll never die. And then he looks at her dead in the face. I promise I'll never die. And
Have you
then
seen
the dolls
Boogie
are
Nights?
just bumping into each other.
Yeah.
Have you seen Boogie Nights, Greg?
I have not.
All right. There's a very good scene. So it's about a young guy. It's about a 17-year-old kid who basically gets recruited into porn by this by Burt Reynolds, and Burt Reynolds' character, not actually Burt Reynolds, and
This is Hollywood.
basically he there's the first sex scene is him, and he's banging the actress, and it goes on for a while, but it's very important because it shows the voyeuristic and exploitative nature of the porn industry. And it's a scene which introduces this world of simulated eroticism that he becomes a big part of, and it's an essential scene for the movie. And it goes on for a while, but that's a good example of a sex scene which is necessary.
That one's interesting because Mate said it's like Orgasmo without smut, which Orgasmo was hilarious too. Orgasmo and Basketball are classics that I don't think that those guys get enough credit for. But the thing about that is it almost lines up with your bang the hot soccer mom example because I remember we talked about this with The Substance, where at a certain point you can say like it's essential, but it's wrapped up in so many levels of irony that it's like, no, we're showing how exploitative the porn industry is by showing you all of this porn and making it look, not appealing at all. Just like we did with The Substance, where we showed you this gorgeous naked young woman with prosthetic gigantic breasts. But you're supposed to know that it's exploitative and it's actually supposed to be wrong, but we are showing it to you, and it is very nice to look at.
That's often part of the point, right? You enjoy this terrible thing, don't you? Isn't that weird that you like looking at this thing that's actually pretty bad?
I mean, it is, but it's
that can be part of the point, right? Like you're uncomfortably aroused by this thing, and
the way the scene in Boogie Nights is filmed, though, it is filmed in a very awkward way. It's often frame within a frame. There's like weird awkward close-ups, and I think it's trying to cinematographically reflect the awkwardness of the natural awkwardness of putting two strangers in a room and telling them to fuck for entertainment. It's an unnatural, weird, and awkward thing to do, and that's reflected in the cinematography, which is actually quite ugly, deliberately.
And again, I haven't seen this one, but this feels a lot like Cuties, where people were like, no, seeing these kids dance provocatively.
No, Cuties is not a
bad.
Cuties
is how bad it is because the girl tries to harm herself and all of that. So it really
because she's an actual minor.
That's how
the issue with the issue with Cuties is that they had actual minors doing these things.
Yeah, I mean, once you have like full on minors, like these girls are like 12, 11, 13. It really doesn't matter what your excuse is at that point. There's just a cutoff point where you cannot put actresses or actors in erotic situations. Like it's just, I mean, I can't believe they got away with that as well. And fucking
It's
Netflix
strange,
defended it.
People still defend it. Like,
I mean, I know
I've heard
we
those
all know
excuses,
for
like,
a
you
fact,
just haven't seen it. It's actually showing that those things are bad. Like, but you
there
still
were
show them.
nonces. There would have been nonces masturbating to that. And Netflix
in other films, you show a movie of a thing, but the thing isn't actually the thing. It's just a movie. It's a story. But if you sexually exploit minors, to say sexually exploiting minors is bad. Also, Netflix paid us a lot of money to do all this. Obviously there's an issue there. They're actually doing the real thing to show you that the real thing is bad.
I don't even think. I mean, I didn't watch Cuties, but wasn't their
Me
argument
neither.
not that the movie was about exploitation? It was like empowerment. They were empowering these girls.
Yeah.
It was.
so I think,
It was like peak woke when they were basically borderline trying to normalize pedophilia. Like that. It was that time.
it was a moment of just
Oh, yeah.
like almost like month pitch perfect in terms of cultural things, where it was enabled so many things to happen and coalesce into one film that could only have happened in that exact moment. It's a very strange cultural
It's
artifact.
weird that Netflix. I mean, if that came out today, like Netflix, I cannot imagine today Netflix would platform that or anyone would platform that. But that's where the culture was. Netflix fucking defended that at the time. That's how bizarre a cultural moment that was.
Yeah. We'll never see the like again, I don't think.
I hope to God not.
Probably not.
Right.
I hope not.
Oh no.
Well, Greg, Brokeback Mountain. Surely a scene where you need to convey these two characters wending their way towards each other fitfully and awkwardly to a moment of explosive release that's been building up and stoked over an entire lifetime of repression. Surely you need the graphic and sensual expression of that purely and intensely released cathartic moment of sexuality between two characters. It's brazen, but necessarily so, because just like the relationship between the two, the inevitability and the release is explosive and contentious and visceral, and so you need to have that conveyed through a scene. You can't just have shadows moving sensually in the background while there's mood music playing. You've got to do it properly. Would you not agree?
No, I would not. I would not agree. I think that I haven't seen this one also. God, I haven't seen any of these. But again, the visceral, explosive nature of this scene as you described it. See, I think that's part of the issue is like it's beating you over the sphincter with like how obvious and just in your face it is. Whereas we were just watching this the other day. When Darcy and Elizabeth hold hands for the first time as he helps her into his carriage, and then they zoom in on the hand and he's like shaky and he's like, oh, I touched her hand. That's so much more impactful for so many more people than which one spits on his hand and is like, here, I'll use my spit to, like, I don't know. It just
I think aren't you being a reactionary heteronormative?
100%. I am a cishet oppressor, and I understand that.
I haven't heard
myself.
cishet in a while. It's been a while since I heard that.
Somebody mentioned map in my comments. That's with cuties. Nobody's been talking about maps recently. No one's been talking about cishet recently. It's all going away.
Is cishet dying? Maybe has it had its cultural moment? Because I haven't heard that in a long time. Not even ironically, really, until you mentioned it.
I think it was trans. It was trans language, and it pretty much died with the trans movement. Greg, what about Giggly or Jiggly or whatever it's called? You know that Ben Affleck and what's her name movie?
Oh, Gigli.
Ben Affleck and
was there a sex scene in that one?
Kim. No, who's she with?
The singer, Jenny from the Block.
Yeah, her. So what about when she spreads her legs and says like it's turkey time, and he eats her out? What about that? That's an iconic scene.
That sounds like comedy gold, honestly. Like, did you burst out laughing when that happened?
I actually haven't seen it. I've heard the scene described many times. I keep meaning to watch Gigli because I want to know if it's as bad as its reputation suggests, but I just never got around to it.
You know what? I know we were going to watch. We were going to do like a roast of Bros because didn't you say that there's like a full-on softcore scene?
There's some absolutely horrifying sex scenes and that, like just
terrible stuff.
Hideous to look at.
Nightmare fuel. Well, I can't convince Greg on Brokeback Mountain.
You know what? I might be convinced on Monsters Ball, but I haven't seen that one. Thus far, that's the only one that sounds remotely interesting to the theme of the movie at all.
Okay, the 40-year-old virgin. So you have an intimate scene, quite frank, ordinary lighting towards the end to show the intrinsic resolution of the initial premise. And so you're going to have tenderness, very sweet ironies. You're going to be backing your protagonist and it needs it as a resolution to the film. You have someone who's incredibly vulnerable, and we need to see that vulnerability, and we need to see the catharsis of that release of a different kind of self-willed kind of repression and timidity, and the idea that you can embrace, late in life, you can have a new chapter where things begin and there are new possibilities, and so it's kind of empowering and sweet and tender and comedic as well. So surely the 40-year-old virgin sex scene.
Well, but that's not a sex scene, right? That's the
They gyrate.
Gosh, I haven't seen that one in too long. I did see that one. I can't remember what it was like though, because that to me, I categorize the, hey, I'm about to take my shirt off and then we fade to black. I categorize that with the both people just going, oh, and as you're that camera angle, and they both like flop back. Like, why were you both sitting up? First of all, like why were both of you sitting up and then you both fell back side to side? That's never.
And the woman has the blankets somehow raised up to cover her breasts when she flops back, whereas the guy somehow is lower down. So it's beautifully synchronized.
I put those in the same category because they are. We still don't have a sex scene. We've either led up to it, or as you said, we're doing the after. But we can still say, look, these people just obviously did it, but there was no.
There's a plaintive bit of very slow, cumbrous missionary that's involved in this. So there is that.
I'm gonna have to rewatch it just for the comedy value, but that's all right.
Yeah. So maybe this one you'd be all right with because it's got a nice context to it.
I'll stay open-minded.
Good. Atonement. So the entire film and the novel it's based around hinges on a crucial scene of these two people who have been at loggerheads, unable to express their latent passion for each other. And then it finally emerges. Famously in the book, the man... he writes a letter of apology, very clipped and formal, as you would have back in the 1930s. And he writes a little letter of apology to the people who live on the estate up the road. But he goes he sets aside that letter, and then he does a daydreaming letter full of graphic, stuff about what he would actually prefer to be doing. And he mistakenly sends the second letter, and then he arrives at the place, and it's the thing that accidentally unlocks the passion that they secretly have. And then there's like a very shadowy but very intense sex scene that occurs in the library that sets in motion the entire plot for the book and the film. So intrinsic, very powerful, based on a high-quality literary novel by one of the great authors, by a great auteur-director as well. So surely necessary.
Again, I am ignorant to this one. What's the name of this one?
Atonement.
Heard of this? Now I want to read the book, and I might.
You need to read the book. It's probably one of the top 10 novels ever written, in my opinion. Should have won the Booker.
Oh, I mean, I'll check it out because I like James McAvoy and Keira Knightley. However, it's hard not to once again go back. I know this is an overused example, but goddamn it, it's classic for a reason. Keira Knightley got all of those things out with the enemies to lovers. I suddenly realize I like you when she was Elizabeth Bennet, and I still think it works. I don't think that anybody had to shag, as it were, as they say across the pond, or in what's the other one? My wife watches Emma constantly, so I've seen that one with Bill Nighy and Anya Joy Taylor Joy, one of the two. It's like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Tyson deGrasse. I can never remember which last name goes which, but same thing where you can get the point across of the final we can be together, but you don't need shadows moving against the wall, or I don't know. Right. No, I'm not convinced on this one. I don't think you're going to get me on this one, but I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
All right, fine. And the final example,
like Monsters Ball did.
Final example I could dig up is the Kiss. The Kiss from 1896. It's 18 seconds. Sometimes known as May Irwin's Kiss, is one of the earliest films to be shown to the public, directed by William Heiser for Thomas Edison. Officially the first ever film to feature two people kissing, it caused an uproar, with one commentator writing that it was beastly enough and life-size on the stage, but magnified to gargantuan proportions and repeated 3 times over. It is absolutely disgusting. So that's the review from the 18-second clip from 1896.
I'll
Thoughts?
bet she showed ankle in that movie as well.
She might have. So what
Hold
about
on,
this
I got one more. I got one more. So there's a movie I saw recently called Queer, and in it, Daniel Craig gives a blowjob to the guy he's after, right? And then
Right.
the guy blows in his mouth, and then
Mm.
Daniel Craig's about to like get up and spin it out, and then the guy goes, "No, come here," and he kisses him. So Daniel Craig kisses the cum into the guy's mouth.
Well, it's
And
a
the
closed
point
loop.
is, no,
So
listen,
that's
listen.
why it's not cheating.
It's a
The point of
closed
the
loop.
scene is
Closed loop.
the point of the scene is it's because they're gay, right?
Well, the thematic imagery right there, it's subtle, but I think after you explained it, then it made sense.
Thing is, I'm bisexual, and that shit is disgusting. So I don't even if it's not straight from the tap, then I'm not interested. You can fuck off with it. So
It's a closed loop. That's an all-time banger.
Oh man.
All right. So I think maybe
Snowballing.
two or three I managed to convince you, Greg.
What? So you possibly Monsters Ball could work.
Mhm.
I think Team America works, but that
Yep.
is clear parody. I can't even call it a sex scene. There's no penetration. It's dolls banging against each other. It's parody. So that's disqualified. And then what was the other one? What was the other one that I said might
Let's
be
just
work?
go back. So yes, we agree on this one. No. What was your opinion? Yes or no?
I don't remember the actual.
It's yes or no. The sex
No.
in this, it's missionary.
Still
Okay, no on
No.
Brokeback. Yes on this.
That's disqualified. That didn't count. That's not a sex scene.
Yes.
Might be. You described it
be.
well.
Okay, and Terminator.
Still no.
Surely Terminator. Still no on T.
No.
Unbelievable. Okay, well, I think we resolved everything there.
what do you
so-
actually have against sex scenes? What is it about them that you don't like so much?
Most of the time they're completely pointless, and I think they derail the story. Like, it's not even that they don't add to it, which is one thing. They're screen bloat or page bloat when they happen in books, which is contemporary books are just packed with it. And a lot of times they don't, not only do they not help the story, but everything comes to a halt. All the character development, the plot that's going on, everything takes a absolute stop so that we can describe the way somebody's breasts are moving or how somebody's butt looks or whatever. And it's just like in books, it'll go on for pages at a time. In movies,
I'll
it's a
take your
solid
word
2-3
for it.
minutes where it's just like, what are we? Nothing is. I mean, it really is. It's boring. It is. It's like because a lot of people are like, well,
is the thing
you know,
that's
it's realistic.
happening,
It's what
right?
people do. It's like, yeah, but people take shits also, like, and we do it more often than we fuck. And
But you would probably say that a scene where someone takes a lovely poo in a movie is important if it has to do with like if it's important to the character or the story, or if it's a plot point or
the only
something
time
like
that
that,
the only one I can think of is Dumb and Dumber, because it was
that's the one that comes.
because-
That's the one that comes to my mind. Yeah, but
right.
it's
So
really
that might be
funny.
the only one, but there may
But
be
it's
others,
very-
but, like,
It's well, I mean, Game of Thrones. Well, I mean, it.
like,
Regardless of how much
people-
it does or doesn't happen, like it would be the same thing that apply. It is an important aspect of, you know, an essential part of the human experience that we all share, but it typically is not important to any narrative, and it is for most people much more so than, you know, sexuality, a pretty unsavory aspect of the human experience.
All right. Well, before we get the chat posting all their favorite
Poo scenes from
excursion-
movies,
yeah,
that's
poo
right.
scenes from movies. Let's try and nip that in the bud. So Superman, we live in an age where statistics don't matter anymore. Nothing matters. Poll numbers don't especially matter. The jobs numbers came in the US, and so the president didn't like them, so he just fired the guy who releases the jobs numbers. So that doesn't matter anymore. And then Rotten Tomatoes numbers don't really matter anymore because, you know, it could be review bombing, it could be just flaky media. So we don't know. It's all very strange. And Superman, I'm trying to figure out the numbers, and it's just becoming more and more of a headache these days, and more of another just stupid, pointless battlefield. So what do we got here? Superman is down to 7 million domestic weekend and 5 million overseas weekends. By August 26th, it'll be having 5 million global domestic overseas weekends. They know they milked it dry, but then Superman is currently at 5, 6, 7 million and will end its box office run north of 600. only needed 562.5 to break even. So anyone falsely claiming this film was a flop is either being disingenuous or they straight up don't know what they're talking about. Is now the highest grossing Superman film of all time at the domestic box office, passing Batman v Superman. I know inflation is racist, but ticket prices tell you how popular a film is and how many fans saw it. Box office numbers don't guarantee a lasting cultural impact. And then they've got the different numbers down there showing the things with the tickets sold and the averages. So I don't fucking know anymore.
Wait,
Greg, is Superman a success or not?
Wait, did that tweet say it was the most successful Superman movie ever?
Domestically, I think it's hitting that way. Yeah.
Oh, did it make more domestically than Man of Steel? I wonder.
Not adjusted for inflation. So sometimes people adjust for inflation. Sometimes people think it's racist. Some people think it's weird. I don't know what the situation is.
Yeah, it's prudent to hear. But I was just curious what that tweet had said.
I mean, I've been looking at these numbers for a couple of weeks now, on and off, and I still have no idea if this film is a success or not.
I'm not sure why everybody's so obsessed with like these comparisons. I guess the big thing, the big tell will be, does this successfully launch the Gunniverse? I mean, really, the numbers, at the end of the day, the numbers, like, does it, if it makes money, if it doesn't, like, it's made money, it's crossed even, which is fine, and it's going to sell a little bit of merch, and there will be streaming rights and all of it. So it's going to make money. Maybe it won't be $800 million in profit like some of the Marvel crap was, but the real question is, because Man of Steel didn't launch the DCEU, there was no big DCU like there was the MCU. So
they tried. There certainly were films in it, and there were multiple films in that series. The DCEU was a thing; it did exist. It just wasn't as successful, and it didn't do nearly as well as it needed to, and it didn't get sort of the cultural impact that it needed to. But it did exist. Well, you had two Wonder Woman films, Man of Steel. You had Batman vs Superman. There was Aquaman. I mean, there were. We have these.
I got to look up the time, because what I would argue is that if because they existed, but if they didn't do well, what that would tell me is that Man of Steel did not excite people enough to get them hooked on on the whole concept. Like, Iron Man was so incredible. You can really point to that movie and say that movie all by itself, the MCU got where it got because of that. And the other movies were good also, so it built momentum, but that momentum was started by Iron Man. It was that good. It got people talking that much that they were dying for more movies. And then each one was passable or very good, and then it really got rolling. Whereas I got the order up here, so Man of Steel just wasn't it didn't build the momentum enough. Well, then Batman vs Superman, the non-Snyder cut, which I still haven't seen, that didn't help the momentum. And then Suicide Squad was garbage. Wonder Woman was good. Justice League was passable. Aquaman was not great. Shazam was only passable. You could argue it both ways, but I don't think that Man of Steel, I think a strong argument can be made that it wasn't good enough to build enough momentum to get over the hump of the not great movies to get the whole train really rolling, would be, I guess.
Yeah, it was. It didn't do what Iron Man did. And part of that is because Man of Steel is a bad movie, and Zack Snyder is a very bad filmmaker. He has been getting way too many chances to this day. It's kind of amazing how they gave him the reins to this sort of stuff. And he's responsible for really tanking those sorts of ambitions. But I could shit on Zack Snyder all day, and I often do for a living. But if we're going to talk about like Superman specifically, this is bad. People are major coping if they're talking about how great the earnings are for Superman and how this is a great launch and a great start. I just checked the box office for it. It's at 581 million. That is not good at all. They were definitely hoping for way more than that. This is supposed to be the movie that launches James Gunn's DC universe. And it just wasn't a really strong showing in terms of its box office, and I don't think that it really had I just don't think it has the cultural impact and really this super huge desire that will bring people back. I mean, Supergirl is going to be the next one, and I think that might actually flop.
Supergirl,
think that
I'm going to say right here and now, Superman was a flop. It needed about 700 million, and Supergirl is going to bomb.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think so. I would be, well, the fact that they just announced that Batman 2 is going to happen and they gave a date for it should tell you what you need to know about their confidence in the success of Superman and James Gunn's own version of Batman. Because Batman's in a really weird spot because the Batman was decently successful as far as I recall. People tend to like it a decent amount. I liked it for the most part. And so this weird hesitance to not say like what's going to happen with it and what are the plans for Batman and this James Gunn DC universe and how that's up in the air. And now we got essentially the numbers are done for Superman. And now we're announcing, oh yeah, the Batman, the thing that's not a part of the DCEU that I'm trying to do. Yeah, that's getting a sequel. We're not going and doing a Batman that's dedicated to this extended universe. Where if Superman made $1 billion, the Batman 2 wouldn't be happening. They would be going full steam on their own Batman. But I think that the announcement of the Batman 2 shows you what you. That's the announcement that shows that they are not super duper confident.
Is there even a 1% chance, excuse me, that you could have big dick energy between Gunn and David Zaslav, where if you had, for example, a Clayface, which was turning out to look like it's going to be absolute garbage, it's going to be a vast sum of money, it's not going to do anything, it's going to be stupid, where you could actually have Zaslav step in and cancel a James Gunn-backed project and shit can it for tax purposes? Is that even a 1% chance that could happen?
Because I believe Clayface is being written by Mike Flanagan, correct?
I don't know about that, but some similar example of like that, like Booster Gold or something like that.
Well, I don't think Clayface is. It's tough to tell. But the fact that Aquaman made over $1 billion is a cultural anomaly that befuddles people to this day. But I guess there's a chance of these weird sort of breakout successes, but particular in the foreign market. But I don't know. I mean, I'm looking forward to Clayface because Mike Flanagan, it's his story. And I've really enjoyed a lot of his stuff in the past. But as for its success, I have absolutely no clue.
See, I think Booster would be that's a gun movie.
Yeah.
Booster Gold is going to be, if he writes that, it'll be great. But some of this stuff is just not his style. And that's not, I don't know.
So the other one I had here is this thing over Andor. Did you see the strange cope and strange different universes that people live in? So Andor viewership increased by almost 40% from the end of Series 1 to the end of Series 2. But that was the idea that they did the last week from Season 1, which only had one episode, and they did the last week from the second season, which had 3 episodes in it. So technically you could divide it into thirds, and it actually looked terrible. And Robot Head did the charts for it. So it's all just, there's no agreed on metrics that people have anymore. People just churn these numbers around and find whatever they want in them, and then just put them out into whatever media outlets is going to affirm that narrative. And then we get this thing where it just becomes everyone sort of gives up and just goes with their gut and feels like, okay, well, maybe it was just good because of the vibes. That's all we're left with now.
Of all of these shows, only one of them is actually still in like the cultural zeitgeist. Only one of these shows is really referenced enough. That's Andor. Andor is the one that people talk about. It's the one that people recommend to people. It's the only one of them that is good. Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and the Acolyte are all absolute dog shit and worthless. And I think
when was the last time you heard someone even mention Ahsoka? Like, that thing has been memory hold.
It has been. Yeah, it's like a lot of these shows. Andor is good. It's got a lot of staying power. It is legitimately quality TV, and the word of mouth on Andor has been extremely positive. And so I think we saw this with Season 1. We're seeing it with Season 2 again. It does seem that people go to it. Even after it's out, people will flock to it. It will build up and it will remain culturally relevant in a way that the others just aren't. They're bad. They have nothing to say. There are no real scenes of value or conversations of value in them. I can imagine 100% that a lot of people just quit when they realized it was empty calories and there was nothing of value there. There was nothing in those stories that I feel would push most people to actually finding out how it concludes.
Yeah, I mean, just nothing happened in Ahsoka. It just drifted with this very narrow range of stuff that's happening. There weren't any like exciting action scenes.
There were very intense scenes where people stared at each other with their arms crossed. And
yeah, there was arm crossing. That is true.
A lot of arm crossing. It's like a Robert Jordan novel. There's a lot of
that
arms
horizon won't watch itself.
That's true. And Down's Cat, I think, was the highlight for me. So let's look at let's see if I can put this on. The Red Sonja trailer, if I can get it up and running. I'm not sure if it wants to play. Come on, Red Sonja trailer. Let's go back to the beginning here, see what happens. This is strange. It's there, but it's not playing. Let me try this again. Geez, now it's not even going at all. Maybe my poor computer just can't handle putting a thing on the screen. I don't know. We'll come back to that, I guess, later. Poor Red Sonja trailer. What can you tell me about Red Sonja, Greg? Basically, it's Conan the Barbarian, except some reactionary writer from the 30s came up with a chick equivalent in bikini armor. Is that basically the deal?
From what I understand, yeah. And the people making this decided that they... I don't know. I don't know what the point of making this movie was. Like, I don't know if it's just to own the chuds or I don't get it. What I know is that Red Sonja was written by a dude, it was written by a dude. It was created by a dude. It is, I mean, it's the most bro-y thing on the planet. Like a super female barbarian. It's Conan, but she has a chainmail bikini and her milkers are so gigantic that her back would break, except she has massive core strength and has an 8-pack. Like, yeah, it's very cliche and we can laugh at it, but it has fans. So why would you make a movie and shit on the fans of the property of the name that you're making? Like, I don't, if you want to laugh at them because you think that's dumb, then fine. But why would you invest your money? Why would you bet money on this doing anything above $10 million? It's going to flop so damn hard because, and part of the issue, and this is like a gender thing. This is written by a woman and it's being directed by a man who's cosplaying as a woman. And it's there's a different like the dude that wrote the original comics. It's like r/men writing women. Like it's the most stereotypical cliche. You know, a man writes a woman who breastily walks into the room while her breasts sway boobily. Like, it's so dumb, but you know what? That's what it is. And that's what, if you're going to make the movie, make that movie. Don't hire a woman and pretending to be woman to write and direct a movie that, like, it's like they hate money. I don't get it.
Guys back in the day who would be into this kind of stuff or would have, like the old-fashioned role-playing games or books with covers like this, I don't think they had a single misogynistic bone in their body. I think they're really nice guys, kind of passive guys, and they liked having these characters involved. And they liked even playing these characters or having these characters in books, or they would see them maybe in old films or stuff. I think there was actually kind of an innocence to it. I think it was the opposite of misogyny. It was just part of the cheesy, corny fantasy landscape where you could have empowered chicks part of the mix. And so I never think that there was anything bad or chauvinistic really about this kind of stuff.
I mean, I guess it depends on where you're looking at. I guess there are people on college campuses that are offended by it. I agree with you that I don't think it was like intended to be like, haha, dumb chicks. Like that arcade game that I can't remember the name of, where you were either a dwarf or a Conan the Barbarian guy or an axe swinging gal in a bikini. Like, yeah, it was just nerdy fantasy stuff. I guess people are offended by it, but
I mean, people would watch Xena Warrior Princess, and it was just a good time. It was just silly, just dumb. Sure, there's some boobs and stuff and a bit of TNA, but it's not the point. The point is just this kind of goofy, fun fantasy stuff. There's no scope here for witty, sophisticated feminist reimagination or reinvention or reclaiming of this trope or that trope, or the scene toward the end of the trailer where the guy says, "Here's your armor," show off the booby thing, and it's supposed to be like an ironic little eye-rolling moment of this is dated and we're taking this in a new direction. It doesn't have the scope for that. It's all completely pointless, and I don't know who the audience is and who's going to feel fired up about this.
No, and like I was saying to you guys earlier, what really gets me about this movie is that they also didn't have the spine to commit to that idea of like, this isn't the Red Sonja that you gooners like. This is a different, this is body positive Sonja. Like, this gal is, if you saw her out in public, you'd be like, yeah, that's an attractive woman. That's fine. But the comic character that I have seen in like images and stuff, she is unnaturally, proportioned and very pretty, but also super tough and will swing an axe and will kill you via snoo. And that's the fantasy of the comic that guys want to see, which is fine. This is the most medium looking movie. Like I said, I don't want to be like, oh, this gal's ugly, but she's not like when they were doing Avengers and they cast Scarlett Johansson and they were like, okay, Scarlett, you need to get into a sauna to lose all water from your body, and we're going to grease up this leather jumpsuit that you're going to get into, and we're going to dye your hair the most unnatural red, and you're going to do karate moves and stuff, and also get undressed in the back seat. Like, they knew what they were doing. That's what they were going for. They wanted her to look as hot as possible. That was the whole point of that. Yeah, everything about this movie, it looks like early 2000s stuff. It looks like the old Dungeons and Dragons movie, but without like the charm that those had. It just looks very
They don't know what to do with lesbianism either. Because in the originals of this kind of stuff, it's kind of a little bit chauvinistic. It's like, tough chicks in bikini armor with swords who like act like dudes. So of course, you maybe have a lesbian love interest there because that'd be fun and cool. But then they have shows or films like this where they actually have a lesbian relationship in there, and it's supposed to be empowering and tough and assertive and reclaiming of the tropes. So everyone's happy. It's like everyone got what they wanted, except I don't know. I don't understand.
Yeah, I watched that trailer and I just thought, why did you make this? It feels like the old Super Mario Brothers movie from the 90s. Like, do you know anything about I know more about the source material than I think the people that made this movie. And I've only ever seen pictures on the internet. I've never even held one of these comics.
Strange. Oh boy. All right. I suppose this one's really for Despot, if he can sneak in the odd word here or there. Is body positivity dying as an empowerment narrative in the culture?
Body positivity isn't dying, it's dead. And I think that it's dead. And a lot of the activists that were pushing it and that were on board with it online are absolutely furious that it's dead. So there were two big things that killed it. One, all of these advertising campaigns like the Calvin Klein campaign, Victoria's Secret went body positive. The companies lost a lot of money. The clothing range that they were advertising did very poorly. The stock went down, and they started just having to fucking jump ship and get away from body positivity because people don't want to buy clothes advertised by fucking land whales. And the second big thing that killed body positivity was Wegovy and Ozempic and fat jabs.
I guess
basically, fat people used to be able to look at the cultural elites, people like Lizzo, other fat rich people and celebrities, and say, you see, there's fat celebrities too, and there's famous people who are fat. We're not
right.
But once those fat fucks started actually losing weight because of the fat jabs, which proved they didn't have the discipline. That proved a few things. One, all of those hypocritical celebrities who talk body positivity didn't mean it. I always said if there was a button these people could push that would make them, what is up? If there's a button these people could push that would make them thin, 100% of them would push it. And when that button came along, Ozempic, Wegovy, they pushed it. And so it proved their hypocrisy. And the other thing
Yeah, the very strange thing, the moment of rupture, was when Adele suddenly turned up at a basketball court with the elfin nose and super kind of slim, and there was a strange, weird little discourse about how this was actually disempowering that she'd lost the weight,
It was a bunch
because
of
it
fat
sent
girls who were furious
yeah,
that they no longer had
strange.
representation at the top. And now
Yeah,
there's zero representation at the top because celebrities aren't fat anymore. They're all taking these fat jobs. Fat celebrities are going to be just extinct in a year or two. And
yeah, I think
so
so.
now, if you're fat and you're obese, you just look like even more of a loser because it's
Well,
not fashionable. It's not seen on the runway. It's not seen at the Oscars or in high society. So you just look kind of like trailer trash,
Yeah,
even more so than you did before. So it's unfashionable now. It's ugly. It's culturally isolated in terms of its social status. It's isolated at the bottom now, and people understand this and they're furious and they're taking it out on people like Sydney Sweeney. She has become a punching bag for the angry leftovers of the body positivity movement that are absolutely livid that they have been hung out to dry by all the elites who just as soon as they could lost weight.
yeah. I suppose the only time you will see large overweight will be as deliberate method acting.
Yeah, or character actors.
Yeah,
Character actors who played the fat guy. There's actually one comes to mind. He played that mole guy in Fantastic Four. Can't remember his name.
yeah. Strange. So I guess the Ozempic and whatever is now the female equivalent of steroids for guys. It's just part of the deal, I suppose. So yeah,
and
another
also
little strange cultural artifact that
we've moved beyond woke, and people are no longer pretending that this shit isn't fucking hideous. I think people are just being a bit more honest about it now, and we no longer have this Abilene paradox where you've got 8 liberals in a room, 8 cosmopolitan progressives in a room, and they're all pretending how attractive this whale on this poster is. You'll have 1 or 2 guys that can say, "Guys, come on, she looks like shit, and she's gonna kill herself if she doesn't lose weight."
yeah, so it's astonishing to think that 2 or 3 years ago, Greg could be driving down, a motorway or a freeway and pausing at the lights, and there would be a gigantic poster of Chica there. I speak my truth in my Calvins for him to look at while he's waiting for the light to change. Astonishing that Calvin Klein, of all people. So yeah, another strange cultural artifact. It's kind of zeroing in, isn't it, guys? Like we used to think in terms of Ghostbusters as the starting pistol for all of this, but I think that there's like a micro within there, like 2020 to 2023, where like the bulk of that stuff was at its most hyper and feverish.
I have my theory for peak woke is 2019 because I was looking at the movie release dates. And if you look at 2019, 2018 is actually kind of quiet for woke movies. But when you get to 2019, there is just this gigantic explosion of woke garbage. And it's insufferable when you actually look at a list of movies like that, like Terminator Dark Fate, I think was 2019. That's where they shot John Connor. It's like the worst. That's for me the worst moment of the woke era. And then it kind of, there was a dead... It got very aggressive after that, like a cornered animal, and it lashed out. But yeah, 2019 was the peak for me.
Yeah, they took the film that you wanted to see with John Connor, the leader of the resistance, and then they destroyed and shot dead the film you wanted to see in 2 minutes in slow motion, and then you had to watch another film, which was an apocalypse of garbage and terrible writing and ridiculous contrivances. Oh my goodness gracious.
Well, part of the reason it blew up so big was that you had like a perfect storm of a lot of stuff. It was the woke thing got popular, but also streaming exploded around 15, 16, 17 is when streaming just skyrocketed. And they all these streaming libraries needed to have the biggest, because they needed to be able to tell you need to sign up for Netflix because there are 10,000 shows and movies, and 99.9% of them are garbage, but we have 10,000 of them. And if you need to make that many shows, you're hiring anybody you can find. And so they hired a lot of low talent, garbage writers and directors. And they said, yeah, just make whatever you want. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
right. And then the ideology got kind of popular. So they were hiring a lot of people that were emboldened, like, here, tell you, like with the Calvin ad, just speak your truth, tell your truth in this story. And so suddenly you have stuff that are like, oh, let's take this comic book about a busty, muscular redhead chick who's like super badass and a sex symbol, and let's make her not about any of that. Let's tell that story. Let's make the Sith about a freaking enemies to lovers hot dude who, you know, convinces a gal to join his side by showing her his lightsaber, or like just dumb shit like that. And they were encouraged to do it. And that's so yeah. It was the quantity over quantity over quality problem of streaming libraries, coupled with all of these college graduates who had the same way of looking at the world, and then you have this woke explosion for the last decade.
Yeah. Going back to that 2019 thing, Despot, Little Woman, because it's since you brought it up and you brought it kind of into the conversation, it's kind of stayed with me for a lot of reasons. One is that in modern Hollywood, when it came to masculinity, which we'll talk about in a little bit, there was that kind of underpinning of the social constructivism, that idea that gender is socially constructed and therefore it can be deconstructed, and that therefore masculinity is made up of all those kind of constructed elements, many of which could be toxic societally, but also for themselves. But when they wanted to, these woke people, they would often swing back, if it was convenient for them, and go back to a gender essentialism. So they could have narratives where you've got that social constructivism going on, if they felt like doing that. But if it's women talking, the women don't want to leave the commune with the pubescent boys. They don't want to abscond, because the danger of the boys is that it's hardwired into their DNA and their mindset to have a misogyny that could be potentially predatory, and so they therefore want to leave them behind. So woke could be a combination of horrible social constructivism and also randomly horrible gender essentialism. Wouldn't that be true? Oh no,
I mean,
I just made the most beautiful, exquisitely finely balanced construction. And
no, I heard you. I heard you, Echo.
Okay, good.
Yes, well, I mean, it's a bit like the trans movement. You see this double think across the. It's one of the fundamental aspects that defined woke, the capacity for double think. So, for example, in trans, the same people who would talk about how first of all, there's no such thing as gender. We use the word gender as if it's real. Okay. Gender is, in my opinion, it's a neo-religious concept. It's basically a gendered, it's basically a soul, a male and or female soul, right? Mm-hmm. That's what gender means, but there's no such thing as gender. It doesn't exist. All right, you have sex. You are biologically male or you're biologically female. Now, you can be effeminate if you're a man, and you can be kind of butch if you're a woman. But this notion that there is such a thing as gender as separate, that exists separately from biological sex, is total nonsense. I've never seen a shred of evidence ever to suggest that gender exists. And yet we use the word on the presupposition that it does exist and that it has been proven. It's a fiction. It was made up by a nonce psychologist in the 70s, like the word gender, and yet it's broken into the language in this hideous way. So first of all, there's no such thing as gender as separate from biological sex. That's the first thing. Secondly, if you look at the trans movement, they would support the social constructivist viewpoint when it came to men and women. They would say the only reason men behave in a masculine or assertive way is because society teaches them to do that, or the only reason we have the patriarchal family unit is because it's socially constructed, which is insanity, by the way. I mean, Jesus Christ, look at a history book. Any society that advanced beyond the tribal level of political organization organizes itself through patriarchal family units everywhere in the world. Japan, China, Europe, the Americas, anywhere that advanced beyond the tribal level, that is what society looked like. And you're going to tell me that in every single case it was socially constructed. Well, my God, what a coincidence that they all were socially constructing the same thing throughout all of history. I mean, it's a historical insanity.
Well, don't you think that social construction is specifically downstream of biology, right? There's a reason why social constructs are created in the way that they are.
Society is born of biological instinct. And the same people who will argue this will also argue that if a girl picks up an action figure, that means she's a boy. Let's go get her on hormones. And then when she's 16, we can cut her tits off. These people are insane. And it's absolutely shocking that society ever listened to them.
Well, it's super self-defeating because you can't use the same evidence to support and go against your argument. Like, you can't say that gender is socially constructed and then also say that you can change your gender because you are now associating with the opposite construct. Like, you can't say there's no such thing as men and women, but also I am now a woman because I'm doing woman things. Like, you can't do both of that. Those are mutually exclusive ideas, but they bounce back and forth constantly.
What was the contradiction that if gender is socially constructed, someone from one sex can't fulfill a gender role from the other sex?
Say it again.
Well, so what was the contradiction exactly?
By saying when they're saying that there's no such thing as there are no such thing as gender traits or gender roles or any of that. Like, it's everything about it is socially constructed. But at the same time, we're also supporting the trans stuff that says a man can become a woman, and the evidence for that is, well, I feel like a woman, or I'm doing womanly things, or I'm dressing like a woman. You have to have those constructs in order to say that you've moved from one state to the other. You have to have two states if you're going to move between the two states. So you cannot simultaneously say that those two states are nebulous and don't exist, but also they are the evidence to show that I've moved from one state to the other. Those are mutually exclusive ideas.
Okay. Yeah, I would I think that gender is real in the sense of it is sort of a description that we used because human beings are male or female essentially, or man and woman biologically. And so we generally construct our societies in order to conform with the biological realities of what we have. And there's always going to be some outliers, but I'm okay with the idea that given enough effort and performance, someone from one sex can fulfill the role societally of someone from a different sex. I'm fine with that, though I think that there is an amount of actual performance and work that should go into that for me to accept that as sort of being a role that you're undertaking. In the sense that if you're...
When you say role, that's quite a vague word. I mean, the role of women in society
it is a vague word.
Is fundamentally to have children and raise them, because if they don't, then society ceases to exist. And I know that that's an unfashionable opinion to hold, but it's true. You know, the role of women primarily is to have kids and raise them, and the role of men is to support the women and to support the kids. You know, that's my viewpoint. That is, I'm not saying that's the only role, that we can have other roles, but that is the primary function of both sexes, right?
Well, yeah, though I would say that it's probably important to say that the reason that we say that these are the roles of the people is because that's directly downstream of their biological function.
Yeah, but
which is fair.
You're suggesting that a man can fulfill a female role, but he can't. He can't.
I think so.
Decide that he's a woman and then start suddenly having babies and raising babies. He can't.
Well,
he can't
I mean,
I don't think that you have to have a baby to be a woman, right?
No, I'm not saying that, but you can't
broad...
fulfill an inherently female role as separate from a male role just because you're wearing a dress and a wig.
That specific role, sure, though I think I might take contention with the idea that it is the role of a woman to have kids, because a woman can choose to not to.
Who else is going to do
and still be well, not every single person of a sex has to fulfill every aspect of their general role.
But everyone who is fulfilling that socially important function is a woman.
Sure.
Well, I see what you're going for, Rags, and I would agree with like both of the things that you said, because you said that if I could do what would be traditionally feminine things, like if I worked really hard at it, I could I could be a homemaker like my wife is, and come up with these systems and schedules and the more nurturing way that she goes about the stuff than I do. Like, I'm more blunt than she is. But you also correctly identified that it would take a lot of effort, right? And so I agree with both of those things, that yes, you absolutely could. You can do those things. Women sometimes don't have, a father or a husband or whatever, and so mom has to do masculine stuff, but it doesn't come as naturally, and so they do have to work harder at that. It does take a lot more effort, and I think that's the big thing, is that some folks are trying to, they're trying to put forward the idea that it's not that it comes naturally to you. It's that you've been socially conditioned to believe that it's natural. And that's, I think, the part that I take issue with is,
Yeah,
if you
I
leave
think there's a
people
lot of
alone-
social contagion that's involved in a lot of this stuff, and I think it's very unhealthy. I think it's really bad. It leads people to really bad outcomes. Obviously, it's a very new sort of topic that our civilization's kind of coming to terms with and learning about and wrestling with. But I think that a lot of damage is going to come from a lot of this stuff. And while I think there's a number of them who are like legitimately this is what's best for them, I think that, like I said, the social contagion of it and the pressure that a lot of these groups sort of push on people to be trans or to be gay or to be whatever, or to convince them that this is who they are. I think that could do, and has done, serious damage to a lot of people, where it hasn't arisen naturally.
Yeah, and what I would agree with you on is like I guess the only good part of it is this, because it goes the other way too, Hart, where people are like, well, I'm a guy, so I can't do girl things. Like those are girly things. I can't do them. And it's like, yeah, you can. That's fine. Like, you're not forbidden from those things, but
yeah, it depends on what they are.
Like all
and
deals, you're absolutely right. They're being pushed into it, and it's some stuff just doesn't come naturally to boys and girls, and that's the issue. Is that a lot of adults are telling these kids that they are wrong because it doesn't come naturally to them, or if they do have a proclivity to something that is opposite of the traditional things that we see with kids, then you have these adults telling kids, well, you are of that opposite sex, and that's preposterous.
It's inherently homophobic, isn't it? Like if a young, say, a 13-year-old kid, boy, he's a bit effeminate and he likes a few girly things, and he sort of, he begins to notice that he's liking guys more than girls, and then some wanker psychologist comes up with purple hair, comes along and says, "Oh, you must be a girl because, it couldn't be the case that you're actually just gay. No, you're a girl." It's it's vaguely genocidal, like they're trying to wipe out gay men.
The Tavistock inquiry that the BBC did, that was one interesting little quirk of that, is that the parents, especially the fathers, would rather their kid transitioned because it took away the homosexual element and turned it into more of a heteronormative.
I don't know why you would prefer
content,
that. I
which is
mean,
a strange aspect of it.
Yeah.
You would rather fill your kid with fucking chemicals and castrate them than have them be gay? Like, ugh.
Well,
I think a lot of these people,
saying, right?
Well, if you take the ages of what a lot of these parents probably are, and the kind of a culture and society that they lived in and grew up in, and the kind of stuff that they carry into adulthood with, I guess it's interesting to know that a lot of people would have that opinion. It shows not how positively perhaps they view being trans, but how negatively they view homosexuality, which is in and of itself sort of its own tragedy in a way. Instead of just being like, yeah, some people are gay, that's fine. And they, typically they can have different traits, and obviously stereotypes don't arise out of nowhere with, gay people and whatnot. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just, it's really weird to think about, because I mean, I'm not the best example because I'm a bisexual guy, but when I look at, like, when I was young, I had there was a girl on my street about my age, and we'd hang out and play sometimes, and she had a lot of Barbie stuff, and so I'd just play with her and do some Barbie stuff. I was like, this is fine, I guess. I didn't really think about it one way or the other. I never viewed as really through the lens of gender roles and everything, especially at that age. But now I never really had any interest in it, and I don't have any now. So sometimes kids just brush up against traditionally gendered stuff that the other person does. And I think that, like, sewing would be a good example. Like, my dad knew how to sew because it was just useful. It's a useful thing, though sewing is typically viewed as, a more feminine thing. But I think that men and women are they're more alike than they are different. I think just the differences can be big. But
yeah, I mean, there's I think you're exactly right, but there's proclivities at either end. I studied for my latest video looking at the Scandinavian countries, and they had a 20 or 30-year very intense program to try and make society as egalitarian as possible, to take out societal expectations around gender. It was very intensive. And what they found is that once you made everything egalitarian and equality of opportunity, the differences between the genders and what they wanted to do actually maximized. It went the other way.
I know about that study you're talking about, and the info. It popped up a bunch during the old SJW days when feminism was really kind of trying to be a thing and sort of pittered out. But yeah, typically we see that the more free that a society gets, we often do see, sort of self-segregation, quote unquote, into more traditional sort of gender expectations and things of that nature. Though there's obviously many areas of the world where, like actual patriarchies that exist in the world that are super authoritarian and theocratic, where you don't really have a choice, and that sort of thing is beaten into you, sometimes literally, but from a very young age, all the time by the culture around you, to where you don't even like consider, a woman never considers doing manly things and a man never considers doing womanly things, because it's just so kind of artificially, culturally, I suppose, demonized and castigated.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Like, who would have thought that that's the way you would get to maximized gender differences is through the paradox of trying to create like an egalitarian thing, which is kind of almost lefty-ish. So it's very strange. But anyway, the one of the upshots of all this whole Me Too thing is why are men avoiding me? This has been on the net for like a couple of months.
Yeah,
it's basically fairly easy. So you've got to abide by a very old traditional chivalric model where it's the onus is on the guy to approach the woman, but that's been welded on to more modern neurotic constructs that if you do approach a woman, it could also be an imposition and de-empowering for them because you're putting an onus upon them to kind of perform in social interactions and they might not want to, but that can be okay as long as you're hot, and because you can then approach them there and then it's not an imposition. But if you're perhaps not hot or on the boundary, then it probably could be construed as an imposition or a nuisance. And then there's also the idea in post Me Too where it can be considered creepy to approach a woman. But if you don't approach the woman in public, then you're also creepy because you're becoming an incel who's frustrated. So pretty easy to navigate, right, Greg?
It sounds like so much fun. And watching coworkers date, like I don't even know how anybody's doing it. It looks like an absolute nightmare. And
what's
so
it like out there, Greg? Because I don't, I'm just working at home YouTuber. I mean, I did sort of vicariously get to witness the Korean youth dating scene back, when I was teaching. I quit earlier this year. I'd be teaching sort of high school graduates before they head off to college. So at that age, they're, the horniest age you can imagine. And there'd be like these little love triangles and, girls who wouldn't talk to certain guys because they broke up and things. And it was very cute. But what's it like out there, Greg? Tell us. I mean, by the way, Greg's married. I'm like his coworkers I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I'll be 20 years here in a half a year. Watching people like the online dating stuff, because my wife and I met 23 years ago in high school. So we just had a class together and that is how we met. So it's cute. It's adorable. And that's okay for you to say, oh, but the like coworkers. So I had a guy who was dating online and he said, some women, that there's the classic, like they demand a bunch of stuff and, you better take me to dinner and buy all these things, blah, blah, blah. But he said, there are also as infamous as, guys just sending dick pics or whatever. He's like, it works the other way too. He said, I would talk, get matched on whatever app he was on. And he's like, these women will just send you a fully nude, like, and he was a sweet guy. He was like, I really just want to get to know somebody. And these women are just sending me instant naked pictures, and it's just as weird. I know that sounds odd, but it's just as weird as getting a dick pic or something. Like, it's just like, why would you open up a conversation like that? But then he said, you meet people and you don't know them till you get to meet them, and all you have is texting, and people behave very differently when they text versus when they're in person. And no, it looks like an absolute nightmare, and I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy.
Well, Vex was saying, I remember from her talking about The Crow, saying that so many people that she knows would hook up just based off vibes, like they'd have good sex or whatever and hook up that way. And then that would be like the foundation for, well, if you gave me, good sex, so we got really good vibes, so we're together now, and I guess we're in love. And so it kind of worked out that way. I think there's probably a tortured construction of what Vex said, so I'm sorry, Vex, but that's what I remember. Oh, goodness gracious.
Well, I get like the dudes, like I understand why they're not, like I remember when the Me Too thing was going big, there was also stories of sexism in corporate America where guys it was like they wouldn't hang out with women alone, and women were saying, well, this is hurting my career advancement because I can't hang out with the boss. Like I can't get chummy with the boss like the other guys do. And so we don't have that personal rapport. And then when it comes time to promote somebody, you know, the guy that he's really on good terms with and knows really well is going to be more apt to get the promotion than the woman. And they were saying, well, that's sexist too. And I just remember thinking, yeah, I get it. I understand why a lot of guys are clamming up. It's not healthy, but I understand because the stereotype is that guys are very logical. Like we approach things systematically. That's why we're more into STEM on you know, in generalities. And so if you're just looking at your options and you're like, well, this option of being a hermit has the lowest risk of being online as a creeper, or, you know, like suddenly you go viral on somebody's Instagram as a creepy dude or whatever, or you get sued, or somebody sends pictures to your girlfriend, like, look, they were speaking to a woman. Obviously they're sleeping together. Like the risk of all of that is so high, and it could just happen randomly, and did happen randomly to a lot of guys, that I get it. I understand why men are just like, yeah, no, I'm going to stay very close to the vest. And then that comes off as rude, but it's like the risk is too high otherwise. I get it.
I will say though, and I think that I'm not sure what the statistics are, but something like because I did a video on this recently where I just put clips together of people complaining about it, and then a piece of media, usually from a movie of a guy and a woman, and then a woman goes nuts. Like it's like Hollywood has tried to socially engineer men out of approaching women, to insinuate that to approach a woman is inherently creepy, and that women are justified in overreacting and acting like crazy people. And it's total nonsense. I approached well over 1,000 women in my 20s, and I never got any sort of crazy, angry outbursts or anything. I think the worst reaction I ever got was a woman kind of spat at my feet.
What?
In a park, because she wanted to show off and look cool and nonchalant to her friend or something. I just walked off. That was pretty much it. That was the worst it ever got. And in fact, the worst when things did get bad, it was the worst interactions I had wasn't because of the woman. It was because of a guy who would come up and say something like, "She don't want to talk to you," or because it's usually Korean guys, or "Hey man, that's my girlfriend," you know. And they're trying to start some shit, or they're trying to impress somebody. But the women, they're either interested or they're not, basically. And I could usually tell within a minute if they were interested, and they usually weren't. So I would just say, all right, well, have a nice night, bye, and that's it. It's no big deal. And it's really pissed me off that women have made it a big deal, because it isn't. It's just go up to a girl if you like the look of her, say, I'll even give you my pickup line, because I'm married, so I don't need it anymore. I'm not worried about you guys invading my harem.
Right, this is a streaming exclusive. Here we go.
Yeah. My pickup line was hi, I'm Jared. I thought I'd come over here and say hi. There you go. That's my pickup line. I'd sometimes spice it up and say hi.
That was calm down, dude.
Jesus,
I
think my wife is watching
the max, and
you
sometimes I'd say, hey,
sorry,
hey, you look great. I thought I'd come over here and say hi. Just that was it. That was my pickup line pretty much every time. Sometimes, like, if there was something going on, we'd talk about, I'd use that as an approach, but just normal social interaction, and then escalate it from there, the fact that it's been made a big deal by these feminist bitches in the Me Too movement, and by all these wanker Instagram thoughts or whatever, the TikTok thoughts, who want to, show up to the gym and turn around and call men creepy for sort of gazing slightly in their general direction. I can understand. Women have ruined it, and not all women. It's a small percentage of clout-hungry bitches that have ruined this for everybody, I think, and it needs to just go back to being normal.
I think social media has played a big part.
Social media, has
just trying to
say,
get likes for shaming people, and
I don't want to generalize about women, because I do think it's a small minority of young, obnoxious, internet point clout-hungry women that are doing this. And it is social media that's driven it.
It is interesting how, as I just casually browse through social media here and there, how you'll see women who they'll tape videotape, like I'm an old man, but they'll record a totally normal, innocuous interaction of a man approaching them, and then they'll put it on social media and act like this is some horrific, outrageous thing that happened to take place. Legitimately bizarre to see this sort of thing. And I mean, it's good to know that most people seem to look at that sort of stuff with derision, and that's good, because you don't want to encourage a society to have it so young men are not, or young men are actively discouraged from interacting with young women, right? It's not something you want to do for societal health and just the social, mental well-being of just young people and being social and going out and, experience the world and other people and establishing relationships. So hopefully this goes away. It seems like there's been a lot of pushback to this sort of attitude, but I guess we'll see what happens. But I guarantee you this, that all of these very attractive young women who act super self-righteous and indignant about being approached by men, and men just want to approach me and talk to me, and men want to have sex with me, and they want to buy me drinks and be in a relationship with me. There is no way in hell that any of those women would push the button that makes them so ugly that men don't want to talk to them. Not a single one would push that button.
Yeah, I think after a while, guys cotton on to the idea that the onus is generally still on them to make the approach, but girls will also signal that it's okay to make the approach, what could just be like leaning in to show you something on their phone, or it could be tucking their hair behind an ear in a certain way with a glance, just little permission cues that it's okay to approach.
But you learn those by
Yeah.
doing the interactions with women. If you're going to strike out a bunch of times, and it's going to be awkward sometimes, but that's how you learn to be social. That's how you learn to interact with other people. And that's just not a man interacting with a woman. It's a woman interacting with a man, men interacting with other men, women with other women. It's like being social with people out and about. It's something that you experience, and you learn how to do it, and you get how people react, and you pick up on all those cues. And if you constantly demonize people for being just like awkward or a little silly or a bad pickup line and stuff, then you're going to discourage them from having those interactions at all. And that's just that's not something you want to that's not something you want to encourage.
No. Well, and my favorite soapbox is that it's like it's the algorithmic nature of the internet, because a lot of guys, they're not confident, and then there's plenty of YouTube videos of the opposite, where women are like this gal that it's so obvious that she's complaining. It's almost feels like rage bait to invite people to clip that and be like, well, let me tell you why they're not approaching you, sissy, like the sister, whatever. So a lot of guys will watch that, and then of course the algorithm will feed you that over and over and over again. And it's like Despot's saying, it's not a large majority of either men or women, but if you watch it all day long, it feels like it. It feels like a lot. It feels like every woman on the planet feels that way about you. And then you get your own death spiral where you're like, well, I'm not going to go, to your point, Rags. Like, I'm not going to go hit on any woman, because they're always going to say no. It'll be just like the simulations. And so I'm not even going to do it. And they convince themselves that that's real. And it's just, it's a clusterfuck is what it is. I think that's a technical term for what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully the species keeps going. So more of that crap. There's the masculinity stuff. There's the social constructivism stuff. All right, let's do a little bit of politics. So I actually dug up the data because I wanted to know what it actually was of the small boats arriving in the UK. So boats arrived, and that's like basically day by day. So a number of migrants arrived, 0, then one day 130, another day 225, another day 68, another day 122, another day 96. So it certainly adds up in the context of a nation with 70 million people. So here's the problem, because I'm trying to figure out what the hell is going on and why people can't change this. And it comes down to a thing called the Human Rights Act, which means if people come across, once they put their foot on the soil, then the country is bound by this Human Rights Act to house them and hear their appeal for asylum. So they cannot, by the law, once they set a toe on the island, they cannot by law put them on a boat and then send them back to France to be processed, because that goes against the fiber of the law as it's constructed. And so people don't want to people are caught in a vice between they don't want these boats arriving. They also don't want to unravel a fundamental institutional part of what makes the country what it is in terms of its values. But here's the thing. You remember Star Trek 6, Greg?
No.
Anyone remember
Which
Star
one
Trek,
was
the last Star Trek film? The Undiscovered
that?
Country.
The only one I
Oh
watched
yeah,
was
yeah.
the
That one was okay.
Paramount garbage you guys asked me to watch.
There's a thing in there where Kirk is sent to be the negotiator with the Klingons, and he doesn't know why. And Spock explains to him that there's an old Vulcan proverb: only Nixon could go to China. The idea being that Nixon, as a rabid anti-communist, tough on communism, was the only one who could go to China and open it up and not be seen as, weak on China. He was the right guy in that situation. So here's what should happen but won't, which is that Keir Starmer, he was the director of public prosecutions, which means he had an entire career built on enshrining, holding up, and esteeming and working within and excelling within the law in the UK and upholding those traditions. He could be the one guy who could go in front of the public. I'll do it for you now, Des, but I'll do the live from Downing Street. As your Prime Minister, I came into public service because as the Director of Public Prosecutions, I believe fundamentally and intrinsically in my character that these are the values that I've always upheld. Having said that, our country needs to move in a new direction. And so I'm appealing to you that with my pedigree and experience and proven record as being the one who can esteem and hold up these values, I feel that I can be the one who can bring the country along with me in this very delicate but necessary moment where we need to look at our Human Rights Act and we need to make some changes to it in order to give us more effectiveness and the ability to deal with the situation respectfully, honorably, and decency that reflects our values, but also reflects the challenges that we're facing. He could do that. He would actually be, he's a pussy in many respects, but he could be the guy who could do that. He could be really positive. He could really do good change, but he won't. And that's the shame of it for me, because you're just going to get stuck with another summer of more people coming over, more hotels, 3 or 4 star hotels, crammed full of guys, Sinhalese guys, Nigerian guys, Somalian guys in their 20s or 30s who don't really have any issues really going on. And so nothing will change. So why not do that rather than let reform or whatever eventually do that anyway in a way that would be more heavy-handed? Am I wrong?
I mean, Labour are so ideologically possessed that I don't think they would be willing to take sound advice like that. I've heard it stated that the left have had their nose rubbed in diversity, because Tony Blair famously said, his plan was to rub the right's nose in diversity, and he opened up the gates. And, a quarter century of mass immigration essentially destroyed the country. Let's just be honest about it. The Britain that existed in the 90s no longer exists. It's something else that no one wanted and no one asked for. But I don't think that the Labour government would be willing to do that. They want these people, like the vast majority of the Labour, even if Keir Starmer doesn't, I'm not going to speak for Keir Starmer, but the vast majority of people in the Labour government want these people in the UK. And I think their hope is that if they can keep them there long enough, they can get them residency and start chain migration so those people can bring their families and you can increase the diversity and they'll all vote for Labour and things like that, and help to sort of destroy whatever is left of British identity. I mean, it's inevitable that reform are getting it in 29. I cannot think of a scenario in which reform don't get in. Things have gotten so bad in the UK. I mean, we don't even have to talk about immigration. There's many, many problems with the UK besides immigration. The economy is doing very poorly at the minute. The unemployment is going up because of the hike in national insurance for employers. There's massive amounts of regulations on construction because of this thing called the Urban Towns and Planning Act from the 1930s. And it's very, very difficult to get anything built and very expensive. And that needs to be scrapped. and Labour would never do it because they don't want construction taken out of the hands of local councils. So there's so many problems. Britain right now reminds me. I mean, it is a historical parallel. Anytime you see a country that's in a really bad shape, there's always a historical parallel. And I found it for the UK, the Qing dynasty in China. In the late 19th century, the Qing dynasty in China was holding on to this outdated, obsolete Confucian ideology that was just rotting the country from the core to the edges. Meanwhile, Japan was modernizing, and Japan eventually invaded China and caused great destruction. And the Qing dynasty collapsed because it was operating on an obsolete ideology that did not work in the 20th century, or really even in the 19th century, the later 19th century. And what Britain today is, it's a country with an obsolete ideology, liberalism. You could also call it progressivism. The ideas that it has espoused have been proven wrong. It doesn't work. This idea that they were going to build up this great multicultural society hasn't worked. So liberalism is now an obsolete ideology, but every single major institution in Britain operates under its ideological influence. And you're going to need a reform to come along and basically pull Britain into the modern world to get rid of this obsolete ideology that is really destroying the country. And Labour they're too dedicated to the old ideology, the old failed ideology of liberalism. They are the Confucians of the Qing dynasty. And the likes of Reform are the modern guys who say, no, we need to reform the army. We need to have a civil service exam that doesn't require people to memorize Confucian texts. We need to base it on math and things like that. We need to copy the British parliamentary system. So Reform are basically the reformers, the Qing dynasty reformers who want to go and be modern like Japan, like do the same reforms that the Meiji emperor did in Japan. And then I would say that the liberals in the UK are like the Qing Confucians, Qing dynasty Confucians, and that's what it's like. And it's going to get really bad over the next 4 years. I could go on and on and on about British politics, but I don't want to bore the shit out of anybody. But basically, the boat arrivals will never stop until a new government gets in and makes them stop.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a billion miles away. I'm as far away as it's possible to be before you geographically turn back. But, I just get the sense that a lot of mainstream people are just becoming single issue voters because there's something that needs to be solved that isn't getting solved.
Sexual assault is way up because of these. I mean, it's legal migration as well. It's people coming from very backwards countries, places like you mentioned, Eritrea and Somalia and places like that. The Middle East, where they just have no respect for women and they're perfectly happy to assault women. Women are being spat on while going for runs. It's not safe. It's just not a safe country now in many areas. And yeah, the normies who didn't want to have anything to do with politics, like they're not interested. They just want to have their wee lives and be left alone. Well, they can't now because there's a fucking hotel around the corner full of migrants and their 13-year-old schoolgirl is getting the 13-year-old daughter is getting glared at on her way to school, and they're terrified that she's going to be grabbed and raped by one of these guys. And that is a legitimate fear because it's happened a lot. In fact, it happened last week. What was it, Epping or something? The government, a girl was raped and the government tried to cover it up. The police told the council not to release the ethnicity of the assailants. It's gotten so bad. Like, you can't just be Joe Normie in the UK anymore. Because the migrants are going to get there eventually and they're going to ruin your life. Like, it has become kind of a single issue voter thing. But the problem is the next general election is not for another 4 fucking years. It's going to get so much worse.
Well, I had one more thought for the day, and I wrote it down last night because I wanted to get it articulated properly. And I want to throw it out there because I think this is something that no one else has addressed. A crucial issue in contemporary society is that ideological partisans often apply inconsistent standards to authoritarianism, creating blind spots that allow overreach to flourish across different domains. Progressive critics who meticulously document US immigration enforcement abuses often remain notably quiet about the UK's expansive hate speech prosecutions, cases where people face criminal charges for social media posts or private conversations that, while offensive, fall far short of direct incitement. So, I saw a video TikTok thing about a girl getting arrested outside McDonald's because she was.
I saw that. That was so depressing.
Yeah, but meanwhile, libertarian voices that rightfully criticize such speech restrictions as Orwellian often minimize or rationalize significant expansions of federal executive power and mass deportation operations with multiple documented cases of wrongful detention, representing particularly troubling examples of state power operating without meaningful oversight or accountability. When US citizens can be seized, detained for hours or weeks without proper documentation, and released without acknowledgement or redress, we're seeing authoritarian impulses regardless of the stated justification. Both sides construct narratives that justify their preferred forms of state overreach while maintaining moral clarity about the other side's excesses. This creates a ratchet effect where authoritarian tools and precedents accumulate across administrations and ideological shifts, with each side expanding the toolkit they'll eventually hand to their opponents. So, Greg, what I'm saying is, fuck this shit over here, but also fuck this shit over here. And I seem to be the only guy who's making that distinction.
Well, the only pushback I have on you is that I think that you're describing more like conservatism or whatever the Republican Party is in other countries. At least in America, the libertarians are not like, yeah, go ICE, deport those fuckers. It's if we quit buying things with government money, be it giving away licenses, cell phones, or if we quit having free social services, whatever, like the libertarian position on a lot of this is, if you didn't pay for things, a lot of people wouldn't migrate here to begin with. And so that's my only disagreement is just the labeling, and it's semantics, but that's pretty much it, because I agree with you that I have a lot of friends, and this is an argument that I get in every now and then with I've got some friends who are Trump supporters, and I don't hate the guy, but I didn't ever vote for him, and there are a lot of things I don't agree with him with, and I have friends that are like, well, some of the things that he is overreaching via government power, it's not a big deal because it's in a support of a cause that I agree with. And you're absolutely correct that, well, if you let him do that, and then Biden and Obama supporters allowed Biden and Obama to do that, and then whoever comes in next, be it JD Vance or whoever else, and their supporters are going to let them do whatever. And that's how you get to the point where you have so much government power, because both sides are trying to own the other side every 4 to 6 to 8 years. And now our federal government in America, at least, it's massive. It is the numbers don't even make sense anymore. Our federal debt is $38 trillion or $36 trillion, some shit like that. Our budget every year is $7 or $8 trillion, but the government is only taking in $4 trillion. So we're running $3 trillion of deficit every year. And then we just passed a big, beautiful bill that's going to make that even larger. And it's just, as long as it's my guy, I'll roll with it. And then that's how we get to where we're at.
Mm-hmm. So it's something I've never quite seen before, this idea that little authoritarian-ish kind of adjacent-y kind of stuff, that people are willing to develop blind spots because they want to attack this other authoritarian impulsish kind of stuff that they see as more prevalent, or they see as more, it's a different type of, there's threat from exterior, or threat from geopolitical, or threat from emotional and prejudice. And so, I'm just looking for consistency, and I think that's breaking down. It's something I haven't quite seen before.
No, you're not wrong. And that's the problem, is like, and people in your comments right now were like, well, the Dems did it. Like, and you're not wrong. That's fine. Like,
it's fine.
We saw it blow up in their faces. Like when the American Senate changed the rules on justice confirmation. And then a few years later, this is the last time Trump was president, he sat, 2-3 Supreme Court justices, and they were pissed.
3.
But all they needed was a simple majority. And they looked at the Dems like, well, that was, you guys changed the rules, right? But then, along the same lines, right now Trump is president, and he ran on, we're spending too much. The Democrats are blowing all your money. It's ridiculous. We're going to release the Epstein files. We're going to get everybody. And like, none of that has happened. So and this isn't like an appeal to the center or whatever shit either. This is like, that's the other thing that drives me crazy, is people are like, well, you're just a centrist. I'm not. that's a false dichotomy fallacy. The people that always claim like, oh, centrist fallacy, that they're almost always guilty of false dichotomy, because to them it is a two-sided battle and you have to pick one. And I'm saying there's like a third or a fourth or a fifth fucking side, and that never gets considered. It's just,
I mean,
we got
Francis Fukuyama put out an essay after the Cold War saying it's the end of history, because with the death of communism, you've got capitalist democracy as the prevailing thing. It's the big winner. And so effectively history kind of stops in a Kantian kind of sense. It's all kind of over. But of course, after that, history kind of abruptly restarted after 9/11. And but then it kind of feels in a weird, different sense that history's kind of stopped again. That we're just kind of in this strange drift. That there's no big icons of change anymore. It's a strange kind of malaise kind of drift where it feels like history stopped again in a kind of socio-cultural way or geopolitical way. I don't know. It's a strange period to be alive. We live in the worst timeline, is what I'm saying.
Well, we've talked about like the globalization of the cultural globalization via the internet, we've talked about this like with music, via social media, music, every little new musical thing is instantly blown up and never gets a chance to be its own whatever. And I know that I'm guilty of taking it a bit too far at times, and people get mad at me in my own comments and stuff, but I'm very much an individualist where I'm not even trying to be edgy of like, well, both Democrats and Republicans are wrong. Haha, I'm so edgy and smart. It's more like if we all gave less of a fuck about what Ted Cruz was doing, or if JD Vance actually fucked a couch or not, or where AOC actually grew up, was she rich, did she go to private? Like the more attention that we give these people and the less people just live their own lives and try to live them well, that's it's not the ultimate cause, but it's a big cause of where we're at, because the more we fight in the culture and political war, the more power it gets. Whereas I really think the most powerful thing to do for everybody would just be to say, I'm going to go do my own thing.
I will say though, Greg,
I'm not going to fucking pay attention to you anymore.
Like, I agree with you, but I do get the sense as well that, fuck me, man, after like 10 years of, Trump derangement syndrome and, Trump, and then Brexit in the UK and all that other shit, I think a ton of people are just burned out on politics. I think they're at the point that you're describing where they really just don't give a fuck.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Well, on that wealthy note, I did want to mention that K-pop Demon Hunters, I looked at the music charts. Not only is K-pop Demon Hunters a smash for Netflix, it's also got 5 of its songs are in the Billboard Top 40 now. What an incredible cultural phenomenon. Rags, yeah. I think everyone has been waiting desperately to hear your opinion on K-pop Demon Hunters.
Oh, yeah. K-pop Demon Hunters is a movie or a show about
That's correct.
some
doing great
demon hunters, and they are Korean, and they are in a band, and they play Korean pop music, and boy, do they hunt demons. And let me tell you, I heard that 5 of their songs actually were in the top 40.
It was more than 5. Actually, it was like 8. But what I know Golden,
word on the street,
Golden, which is the best song on the soundtrack, got the #1 globally on Spotify. But yeah, they're like, most of that album cracked the top 40. All the bangers got to the top 10. Amazing, absolutely amazing achievement.
Yeah, really good stuff.
Yeah. Who would have thought that the biggest hits for Netflix would be Adolescence and K-pop Demon Hunters would be the 2 huge breakout hits?
Well, that's the beautiful thing about Netflix. Netflix, they generally give a lot of just creative freedom to their whatever studio or filmmakers they hire to do a project, and most of the time it doesn't go anywhere and it gets shit canned. After it flops on Netflix, or the season flops, but occasionally they'll have these gigantic hits. And Disney does the total opposite. Disney micromanages everything, which is why all of their stuff just feels and looks like the same shitty sludge.
Yeah. But the problem with Netflix is that it's that same quantity over quality thing where they're doing the moonshot strategy, and every now and then they get a Squid Game or a Tiger King or a K-pop Demon Hunters or whatever, and they justify the other 8,000 garbage slop productions that But that's
the
thing. I mean,
Electric State.
yeah,
Fucking
I
that
mean,
movie with Cameron Diaz and what's his name? That thing was awful.
if you're trying to be positive, I guess you could argue that those things would like who's going to take a chance on K-pop Demon Hunters, right? Like nobody's going to give that a chance, but Netflix did, and it turned out to be incredible. So you could argue that these hidden gems would never happen if it weren't for Netflix just throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks. But it also gives us, well, we didn't talk about War of the Worlds, but we got War of the Worlds because of just like make anything. Who gives a shit? Amazon's got money. We'll just make
Well, from what I hear, it is unanimously. I mean, people seem to unanimously say that it is a good thing that War of the Worlds was made. I don't think anyone is regretting that movie was made.
I really enjoyed it.
I've yet to see it. I'm very excited.
Enjoyed it, man. I don't think I've laughed at a movie as much this year. It's fucking great. It's a trasher piece. I love it. I do.
It's like The Room. It's so like pretty soon the way people say, "Oh, hi, Mark," is the way that people are going to go, "Oh, Sheila, no!
Oh my god,
damn!" Like that. Those are going to be
oh,
equal
hell
very
no.
soon.
Yeah, and it waited half a decade for release. That's got to be a new record as well.
Oh yeah, they kept it buried for 5 years.
Yeah, you know, I'm happiest for most for is Dan Murrell, because he was just saying today in his new video that it's his biggest watched video of all time is his reaction to in his review of War of the Worlds. So I'm glad for Dan.
That's great, man. Good for our Dan, because we love Dan over here.
Yeah. Dan is a friend of the show that's never been on the show.
Let's do a whole bunch of super chats while we got them here. M8566, patron saint and an abiding saint of the channel, gifted 5 Echo Chamberlain memberships, as he always does. Sometimes he goes Greg, sometimes he doesn't. He's capricious like that. We never quite know what's up his sleeve with M8566.
You know, he's fair. He's even-handed.
Jay Skits became a YouTube member. Well, welcome, Jay Skits. And then to just resolve this little thing very quickly, M8566 gifted 5 Greg Owen memberships. I don't know what it is about Disput that M8566 is so averse to that he finds so prickly about him that he's willing to just avoid him. I don't know what his deal is there. Maybe we'll find out.
I don't know if you or I are the side chick, and I really need to settle. I need to settle this.
Chris Schick for the $9.99. Cheap super chat today. I don't think so. Nothing funny to say. I just appreciate you guys. Keep up the good work. Well, thanks, Chris. We appreciate that tremendously. We're trying to keep up the good work, even though it's been kind of a slow news week. MN566 again, member for 4 months. I thought he was going to do a disc, but no. I, for one, think the sexy rags art is essential to EFAP lore. Also, high rags.
Hello, and yes, it is. This is world building. That's what it is. Yeah, you can get all the world building you want if you look up more.
Brilliant.
Look, we all got our lanes. You know, we all do what we all do what we're into. What we're into. You know.
Echo, I need next time the outro to say "I like it straight from the tap," and I need that quote to be straight to fucking Rex.
Well, it's also going to be. That's how. What was it? That's how you close the loop. What was your brilliant one there?
As we listen to Debussy.
Yeah. Well, actually, I didn't do one this week.
Claude Debussy. Yeah, he's good.
Debussy,
he's good. Yeah, he's good. He's one of the better ones. Yeah, he's
well, not according to Despot. Despot is scathingly.
He's not one of the better ones.
Attacks him at every opportunity.
He's good, but he's not great. All right.
He's no Chopin. That's for damn sure.
Chopin.
I've heard it both ways.
Chopin's better than Debussy.
Greg's from the Midwest. He's going to say Chopin. But
Wagner.
I think if you hear, you know, the culminating moment of, you know, when everything resolves at Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun, like Claude Debussy, you know that you're in the presence of a great just by that alone. Or Lemur. Anyway, MA566 for the 5. Bros Echo Chamber audio commentary win. Never. I'll pencil it into my diary and circle it on my calendar to never do that.
We were going to do an April Fool's stream, weren't we? We were going to watch Bros.
Me and Echo did a Bros drinking game. I was the one doing the drinking, where I basically drank every time reference was made to homosexuality, and I don't even think we made it through 10 minutes of the movie, and I got through 3 beers, like tall cans, tall boys.
That went off the rails pretty quick. I got kind of loosey-goosey after a while. That was when you left me for 5 minutes to go to a protracted piss, I think, and left me staring at the screen with all your subscribers. I didn't know what to say. It was really strange.
Well, I mean, I was drinking a lot. That's just that kind of movie.
Yeah. Hey, Kira, for $2. Atonement is the worst movie I've ever seen. Piece of shit. Well, that's pretty harsh. Here's the thing. It's not a good film in relation to the book. That's absolutely true. But it's not a bad film. It's got some good bits and pieces and a decent soundtrack. But, each to their own. Lyman the Coconut for the 20. If a movie cuts away from sex scenes and returns afterwards, then it breaks immersion because it's obvious the director is avoiding it. It's better to show what happened. Imagine an action movie cutting away from fight scenes. It's a pretty good little analogy there, Greg.
I mean,
I don't know about this one.
I follow the logic. I still don't agree because sex and fight scenes they are different. Like on its core, just the, avoiding A equals B. Like, it's a very logical style argument, but it still doesn't make sense in a way.
When in Revenge of the Sith, when Anakin Skywalker lights his lightsaber in that room full of younglings, and then it cuts away, right? Probably,
that's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, probably the right call. I mean, it wasn't the right call to have that in the movie. It's stupid that that's in the movie, but Revenge of the Sith has plenty of problems. But it was probably a good filmmaking decision to not show all of the details of him killing those children, as much as hilarious. I mean, as tragic as that would be to actually watch. But when it comes to sexuality, it depends on.
I thought he was just showing off his lightsaber.
He was showing off. He was showing off his lightsaber.
Wait,
not their childhood was ruined.
With what I know about Leslie Headland and the Acolyte, when he showed the kids his lightsaber, was that actual subtle messaging that?
Listen. That was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. All of those people are dead now, right? Statute of limitations is far, far gone. However, when it comes to sex, right, it depends on what it is that you're showing. If you're showing kissing and a side boob and just general sort of lovey-dovey stuff, that's one thing. But I can understand why most people, for pragmatic ratings reasons, they don't show like full frontal nudity, all the penetration and the stuff like that. It depends on what you show, right? And it depends as well as how, if you want to show specifically and really make sure that you have the interactions of the characters who are, in the frame, and because there's different interactions during sex that you can have. And if you want to show a character that maybe has some doubts or is disinterested or they're super into it and they're really, really, into one another and that can be a part of the film process, is you specifically showing what those people are experiencing during coitus. It's not always necessary, but sometimes it can sort of accent how important it is. You can juxtapose it with, other things like maybe how cruel the outside world can be, or the indifference of or there's a lot of reasons to show it and a lot of reasons not to. So it's very, very contextual.
Here's a question. It's a meta question, and you can answer from any perspective or angle that you want. Would The Room be better or worse if you removed the scene where what's-his-face looks like he's trying to penetrate the belly button of the woman during that sex scene? Would The Room be better or worse if you took out that scene?
I haven't seen The Room in a long time. If you remove that scene, would it get better or worse?
Would your enjoyment of the film be better or worse?
Enjoyment would be worse. The scene should stay.
Yeah, exactly. That's a weird one. So, Greg, I think I've got you cornered here. If you're watching The Room, because you're enjoying it because it's goofy and ridiculous and part of the fiber of the goofy ridiculousness of that film, so you have to watch that scene and part of your enjoyment of it, right?
Maybe.
Got Greg right at the death.
You might have cornered me on that one with awkward belly button penetration. of all the arguments to win, that's the one.
That's the one I got you with. Anyway,
oh shit.
Joey Bag of Donuts for $4.99. I agree with Greg. Great show as always, gents. Also, higher rags.
The Puritan movement is growing, people. Get on board.
It'll be interesting to watch it completely derail and crash and burn like it always does. That's true.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, here's the thing though, is that I still make jokes in my videos about like how to use a necktie as an impromptu clove hitch for like kink play. And I
Autoerotic
thought that joke was
asphyxiation,
fucking
yeah.
hilarious
Yeah.
because of the persona that I have. But like, it wouldn't be as funny if I actually got naked and like tied myself up, and then it would just be gross.
Greg, it would be really funny. Do it in your next video, okay?
Yeah,
Really
man.
funny.
Yeah,
I promise you,
It'll
it's
go
hilarious,
it'll
man.
go viral.
Get
Yeah.
these moves on camera.
Telgor for the 10 raises an interesting point. Hey, I'm about 20 minutes behind, but what about Game of Thrones? Do the sex scenes in that work? Because the theme and story doesn't work without them. So the whole idea that everyone bought into, Greg, is that Game of Thrones, it's lifting the game, it's changing the game, because you don't know if great heroes that we're following are going to, arbitrarily or suddenly die. We're at a whole new level of fantasy, which is drama and sweeping the nation and becoming like a huge zeitgeist thing. And part and parcel of that is that sexuality is going to be in there as an important part of this brutal, transactional, cold, ruthless world. So surely you got to incorporate some of that in there. Otherwise, it's not Game of Thrones.
I don't know that anybody wants to use Game of Thrones as like a good example, because that crashed and burned very, very badly. And
Well, they're probably not talking about, the season, like 6 and onwards. They're probably talking about the good stuff and like its tonal consistency.
I still haven't even seen those either. But what
Really?
I have,
Jeez.
I have not seen a single episode of Game of Thrones. It was one of those deals. And it's not even like I'm trying to be cool. It was just one of those things that got popular, and I was 5 seasons behind, and I just didn't have the energy to try to invest to catch up. I never did it. But
Squirmed away out of that one then.
Yeah.
Tai Fung, member for 5 months. He might be laughing at Greg, or he might be laughing with Greg. It's
I can't
ambiguous.
remember what were we talking about. Oh no, we were talking about the dating, and I said because I'm married so long, I feel like I caught the last chopper at a nom because I don't have an online date.
Yeah. Albatross for the 5. They're furious because a gigantic e-hole was punched through their blank slate hypothesis theory. All that hard work they did down the drain. I assume that's relating to dating and stuff.
Well, it's related to the fundamental, the founding principles of liberalism. This idea that the human being is a blank slate, and that all people everywhere are equal, and that if inside every Somalian is a cosmopolitan progressive Londoner waiting to get out, and all we need to do is transport him to the physical territory of the UK, and he will suddenly become a cosmopolitan progressive just like us. It's the end of history. That's the sort of the obsolete ideology of liberalism, progressivism, call it what you want, that I was referring to, that is now obsolete and needs to be scrapped so that we can have a real country again in the UK.
Well, Floyda raises an important thing here. Why interact with women when you can play Battlefield 1 while listening to EFAP? It's a good point, right?
True. That's a good point. That is a good point. Why interact? Women are totally super overrated. Just hang out with your bros, play your game, listen to your podcasts, and you got good homies. They'll take care of you.
Or Expedition 33 if you don't want to play online. I'm just gonna plug that one because it's fantastic.
Dak Hija for the €6. Hi Rags, good to see you on the Echo live stream. Check out K-pop Demon Hunters, hyped for the anniversary. Yeah, when is the 100th anniversary?
No, this will be 350.
350. My God,
it'll be episode 350. Jeez. Yeah, that's right. Catching up. Incredible. How many episodes do you do a week?
We do fortnightly, so we're kind of sluggish.
And a fortnight is how long is a fortnight?
2 weeks.
Oh, you'll never catch up.
No, not in a million years. It's impossible.
It is impossible. It can't be done. You'll have to have. Yeah, you guys will have to really hit the afterburners if you want to catch up to 350.
I think what we should do is consider each segment its own show. And so like next week, we
cut it up.
Episodes 36, 37, 38, and 39. Just
that's right.
Knock them out.
Mauler was saying the other day when he was on here that you guys were thinking maybe like a 24-hour stream or some huge Leviathan thing. We just bring on everyone.
All of our anniversaries are 24 hours at least. Yeah. Every year we do our 24-hour anniversary. And it typically tends to go over. And we take there's a cap on streams. So we cut it up into segments. So we'll end a segment and then we'll play a little video or something, but we'll be there. So yeah, we're up for I mean, it might be, 26, 27 hours, but yeah, they can go long. So we train, we practice, we get our energy drinks and our 5-hour energy or 24-hour energies, and we do our jumping jacks, and we get ready, we sleep the night before unless you're fringy, and then we focus, we do it.
Mauler's 11-hour banger is surely going to be dropping practically any month now. It's going to be exciting. Can't wait.
Yeah, I'm really, really looking forwards to it as well. From what I've heard, it's something that is definitely worth getting excited over.
Kivu for the 5. For a lighter note, have you guys seen the Alec Baldwin becomes the spokesman for SIG meme? Top kicks. Again, I have no context for any of this.
That would be awesome.
Okay. I get it. Haha. I'm a Glock man myself. So.
Oh, I see. All right. Well, Black Widow exclusive promotional popcorn bucket. Cool name for £5. Great show. Keep it up, guys. Oh, hi, Rags.
Hi. Yeah, I've been noticing. That would be an interesting. Oh, maybe I'll toss that as an idea. Let me write it down on my little thing so I don't forget. But like a tier list of promotional popcorn buckets.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Whether it's the like the Invisible Woman one, or the Thanos this, or the Galactus helmet, or all the
really
some of them are really, really bad.
And they're getting crazy expensive too. They're like what, $20 or $25. So
they are expensive. I go to the theater every once in a while, and I see them sitting out on the counters where concessions are, and they got these big old price tags on them, and I'm like, man, no way, absolutely not.
And last for the day is Kevu for the 5. Darth Vader isn't allowed to live within 5 parsecs of any school. I'm sure that's true. So that planet from, what was that stupid kid show Star Wars thing, which I've already sort of memory hold? What was it called?
There's Rebels?
No, the one with the kids and the elephant kid and whatever.
Elephant kid.
Oh, like
the elephant.
What was that? Fuck, what was that called?
Skeleton Crew.
Skeleton Crew, yeah.
You're not referring to Young Jedi Adventures, right? The actual kid show.
No.
But that show may as well not have existed, Skeleton Crew, for all the fucking...
Yeah, I know.
Anyone cared about it.
Almost as if it never did. I think that's one of my lowest all-time viewed. That was my Danny Boyle's films ranked video.
Nobody gave a fuck about that one. I think everybody who tried Skeleton Crew, every video I saw on it was a flop. Nobody even cared to watch critiques on it. Like, it was just had zero cultural impact.
When I was young, I watched we had a VHS of it, but it was an animated show about Ewoks. And I guess we had a VHS, but it was like 3 or so episodes of the show Ewoks, I think from the mid 80s, and they were on a VHS. And we watch those sometimes. So that's really the only Star Wars kids content I ever engaged with, but I was an actual kid. So
there you go. Well, I think we've covered just about everything. Sex scenes on film, the Human Rights Act, Star Wars numbers. I think we've run the whole gamut today. So it just remains for me to go around the horn and ask everyone what they've got going on. So, Mr. Greg Owen, what can you tell the folks?
I'm struggling to get some videos written, but at least I have an editor to work on them for me. Next week, I've got one coming out about all of Disney's releases this year that show clear signs of having something cut out of them, and we had confirmation of what that something was with Elio. So I'll be reviewing those and how they are absolute messes after the 3 or 4 or 5 versions of movies that they shot and reshot were all smashed together.
Brilliant. The Despot of Antrim, whose wonderful Star Wars movie video critiquing the 10th anniversary of I can't remember the name of the stupid Star Wars film now. The Force Awakens. Yeah, what can you tell the folks?
I'm just going to go straight on to The Last Jedi with my next video. And it's very interesting watching it again. It became obvious to me that it's a very misunderstood movie. It's generally thought of as subversive and going against what was set up in The Force Awakens. And in fact, I completely disagree. I think that it's not at all subversive and that it follows quite naturally onto almost everything that was set up in The Force Awakens. With there's a few things he did that JJ didn't like, but basically it's very much in line with what was set up. It's not at all a subversive movie. And it's a complete abomination. So I'm going to be releasing that video in, I don't know, a week, 10 days, something like that.
All right, complete abomination. And Rags, what can you tell the folks, today's featured guest?
Oh, well, thanks for having me on. And I should have a video coming out the next day or so. And then I hope to have others done quickly after that. I want to really get back to the swing of things. In a couple weeks, we're going to have our EFAP anniversary. For those of you who don't know, Every Frame of Pause is a podcast I run with Fringy Mahler and the Little Platoon. And we talk about all sorts of stuff, shows, movies, games, the whole schmagagel. And you should be there. We stream every Saturday at 1 p.m. Central. And in a few weeks, we're going to have our 350th anniversary. So we're going to be starting our 7th year. It's very exciting. It'll be a 24-hour stream, and we're going to have a lot of fun stuff lined up. So all of you should be there.
Brilliant. All right. And I guess that just remains for me to talk about what I want to boost, which is my Substack profile. So I went over there to Substack and I set it up, and already closing in on 500,000 subscribers out there. This is all for the free content, but I'm just delighted by the energy and the engagement, and everyone who's heard the call and is going over there to look for longer form content. And soon, I think somewhere maybe in the next month or two, I'm going to go add a paid tier, and I'm going to do a big push and pitch for people to sign up for what will be a very tiny amount per month to read this long form content, because I want to get more discursive. I want to have long form pieces. I want to go more into politics and culture and society and their intersections with culture and entertainment. There's a bit of New Zealand stuff in there and Australasian stuff, and people are really connecting with it. So the link is in the description to this video for the link to the Substack, and I think you're going to find some really engaging, cool content there you're going to like. And I want this to be a big thing. My channel is obviously the number one because it's super exciting to press, release for a video and know that it goes to that a football stadium's worth of people are going to watch my dumb ramblings there. But I also want this to be really big, and I want it to also even expand and become a hub. So people you might recognize from the traps, they might want to be to come along as a guest post and put their long form ideas that wouldn't normally find a place for the algorithm on YouTube, or a place in their normal rhythm or scale that they have for their videos, but they'll have ideas, and so you might see familiar faces there. So it's going to be building up. Right now, if you sign up, all the content for free, and there's like 30 articles worth of stuff there and ideas, and you'll find a whole bunch of stuff, and there'll be something that'll appeal to everyone, including in publishing as well. So I really want to push this because I want this to become a thing, and I want this to become an important part of my life and my cultural diet and how I am presenting myself to the world, in the same way that I built up the YouTube channel. So really appreciate your sub. It's all going to be free there, as I said. And yeah, because I've been doing a lot over the years of getting articles published, sometimes in The Spectator, sometimes in Sky News, sometimes it'll be MSNBC, sometimes it'll be the Daily Beast. But it's so capricious, it's so unpredictable. Editors can be they can ghost you. They have their own little agendas. They want to change your heading. They want to do edits here and there. And eventually, just like when I first started the Echo Chamberlain YouTube channel, I just wanted to do it myself so I could have the autonomy and build it up, so I could divest myself of all those hang-ups, all that unpredictability, all the problems that we all know about the legacy media. So I want to build this up as a hub, and I'm really going to push it because I think this is me where I can really be showcasing myself and skills that people might appreciate from me. So as I said, the link's in the description, and I'd really appreciate it if you signed up. So after that long, incredibly self-indulgent little spiel, it just remains for me to thank Mr. Gregor on Despot of Antrim, and today's wonderful featured guest, Rags.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to say Kakitiano, and there's no Claude Debussy today because I forgot. And so I'll just say Harira and goodbye to everyone and leave us stirring.